in a world that walks the line. There's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel. The old man Bills was running through his head. Cheryl probably got it hiding under his bed. Penny up to Annie, making power for days. Don't listen to a word that the straight low says. Mike building batteries that power a ship. Victor comes and talking math, that's the water spiral dip. Sean chucking plasma volts a mile long. Sheila on the video making tone trumpet prongs. Burning breaking matter, they said it couldn't be done. And to all the people in the chat, I know you're having fun. So it's time to spend your Saturday with the dope and old man Bills.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Builds. Joe, what's going on, brother?
Hey, everybody. TGIF.
Oh, man. Dude, I'm excited. Joe's got this theory going on, man, and I can't wait for Joe to show it out. Where do you want to start on this?
Well, I mean, just a little precursor to it, right? And I've heard just a ton of people always talk about like this idea that Tesla had an obsession with 3, 6, and 9, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a lot of different explanations as to why it's significant, but none of them really ever satisfied me. And I'd had a couple of my own ideas and stuff, but like that didn't really satisfy me either. So, you know, doing what I do best rather than look around for what other people thought it meant, I approached it from a different angle, and I started asking myself some questions, just about 3, 6, and 9, and how that all works together for the secrets of the universe, which apparently many say he's never really said. Although that I don't think anybody ever disputes the fact that he had, you know, a lot of fascination, and a lot of his stuff was all built around sums of 3. So yeah, so I kind of started asking myself like just a whole bunch of questions about what I was observing in these sequences, and then what I found became really, really fascinating and really, really fast. And it was stuff that I didn't really hear ever discussed before. I've heard when you chart it out, that gives the right idea, but it doesn't give much of an explanation how that's useful, you know. And I'll give you the conclusion before I go into the explanation. The conclusion is that no one thing anybody has ever said about it is right, but they are not, and none of them are inherently wrong. And the reason for that is actually coherence. Okay. Because when you're talking about the most efficient way that energy develops, okay, it's got to be coherent across the board, as far as its proportions and what goes into it to make it. Any sort of deviation from that, you know, ends up being destructive to the efficiency. So, if you want, we could kind of get into it now. And if you want to just pull up, you know, the diamond, you know, with the 9 at the top.
Okay, I have it. Give me a second.
Yeah, so there's the one that I sent you. It's like a little blue and whatnot.
This one?
Well, that's the one, but let's go with the one that I sent you because it gives more than that.
Okay, yeah, so it is one of the ones you sent me. Okay, give me a second. I got your drawings of them. Is that the one you want?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, so the one that's the drawing with the 9 at the top.
Gotcha. I got it. Okay.
Cool.
This one.
Yeah, that'd be the one.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that I want to show it is because what mine shows, okay, is directional vector based on the the connection of the numbers, okay, which is really, really critical in this, okay? So when you go from 1 to 2 in this, okay, you're establishing at this point the directional vector being clockwise. All right. And then when you go from 2 to 4, the same thing is maintained. But again, now the vector switches on it. I mean, it doesn't switch on. It actually stays the same. Okay, but by virtue of going from 4 to 8, which continues the pattern. So if you realize it, it's doubling, right? So it's going from 1 to 2 and 2 to 4 and 4 to 8. So that's its normal cycle. But now that it ended up on the other side of itself and it's almost out, okay, it has to reverse. It's become fractally too large to continue that sequence. So then it has to reverse it by going to 7 to 5 and then back to 1. And what that does is it creates an inverse relationship between the right side and the left side, and they have to cross at some point. And because they're symmetrical and inverse, they cross directly in the middle. Which again is significant. Now, what those numbers have to do with the 3, 6, and the 9 is those two rotational vectors that are the counter rotating vectors that are created here. Okay, they create then at their point of intersection another vector. Okay, and that's taken out of the 3 and the 6, and that's what makes the 9. So when you look at these numbers, what you start realizing is that you're dealing with thirds. Okay.
Okay.
But you're also dealing with 2 pieces. Okay. So the whole of the sum here, 1 to 9, isn't 1. Okay. It's 2. So when you start breaking it down into its pieces, what you end up with is 0.66 to 1 ratio on one side. And then you end up with a 1.44 ratio on the other.
Nice.
All right. Now, what's interesting about those two numbers is they bridge the gap between them. Okay, because between them is 7.8. If that number sounds familiar. Okay.
Yeah.
So 7 point or yeah, 0.78, I should say, because it's down, but it's still 0.78 falls directly in between them. And that means that the 4.5 on this, which is never listed, is actually the significant point, because that's the point where the interaction occurs. So there's actually like this theory that I have that I haven't been able to prove mathematically yet, but I'm working on it. Okay, where there's this inverse relationship that exists between base 9 spiral mathematics and standard base 10 mathematics. And it has to do with multiplying or dividing, I should say by dividing 9 and 10 by different numbers in the sequence. Okay. What I found so far, okay, is that if you're dealing with a 9, okay, I just want to make sure I get this right. Yeah. With a 9, okay, if the sum is greater than 1, meaning that you're able to divide it into to itself, because the numerator is greater than the denominator, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Like you actually, if the sum's greater than 1 and you're base 9, like it's actually stable. But as soon as it goes into a fraction, base 9, it becomes unstable, meaning like it becomes like 0.66666666666, right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, the inverse is true with base 10. Okay, so if it's above a quotient of 1 or greater, okay, then it typically is fractions like that. But if it's less, then it becomes stable. So what that means is that on either side of this 1 for 9 and 10, they break up into ever greater, smaller pieces. Okay, one above one and one under one. So that is cause of like diffusion. You see, if you're able to control the amount that something breaks down, okay, then you can control it's it's compression, because it's a fixed amount. It'll only go so big, so far, and then that's it. So what ends up happening is you reach this point where after that the pattern is complete, and you have the reverse um, rotational forces on either side, creating that third vector. It goes from base 10 to base 9 to base 10 on your inner fields. Okay. And that's actually when that 7-8 matters most, because that 7-8, 0.78 goes to a 7.8 at that point, as far as its ratio is concerned. So, and another interesting factor about it is that since 0.66, okay, which is 2/3, okay, a ratio of 2/3, combined with the other ratio, 1.44, which is 3 seconds, okay, the inverse equals 2, but they're creating two separate. It doesn't create 2, it creates 1, 1. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, it does.
It creates 1, 1, not 2. Now the two together then create 2 to 3. And that's where the critical aspect is. So you have, it equals this 0.66 plus the 1.44 equals 1, 1 equals 2 to 3. And now all of a sudden you have the tie between the Tesla, flow of energy through 369 and the Fibonacci sequence, and what bridges and the Schumann's resonance. And how you bridge the gap is these inverse thirds, and that's the relationship. They're harmonically perfectly coherent with each other. And
So-
it's the only way that you could relate a half to a third.
So they're coherent to each other. They're not distortion to each other. I just want to verify.
They're coherent with each other. Exactly.
Interesting.
So again, with the application, so what does it all mean? Well, what it means is that these thirds are all around us all the time, and anything that works well and stable. Okay. And in context of like coils and things that we're doing here, you've said it a million times. You need more than one, right? You need more than one. Okay, so more than one, and how do you figure out what those two proportions are, right? So if you choose what your whole frequency is at the end, what you're aiming for, right? And then you do the math out to times 0.144 and then times 0.66, you're going to end up with two different numbers, and that's your proportion of the frequencies that you want to try to emit, so they have an asymmetric equilibrium in their interaction. So it's that particular offset that lends itself to basically everything. It's because when that third vector is created, that's a pulse beat frequency vector. So now you've taken it and you've induced it into a state of cavitation. And then because you have the rotational vortice component of the initial energy flow, you have a magnetic component. So that's really what you need to be able to capture energy at high densities in the middle when bringing something into resonance.
It's funny. You got the beat frequency in there. You understood it as the pulse. That's amazing. Most people don't see that. It's the same way I do.
So, and the thing is that it pulses, but like it doesn't necessarily go away.
No.
And I think that that's sort of the critical aspect. It's sort of like if you push something, and like the swing, you push the swing, right? The swing doesn't stop moving because you're not pushing it constantly, right? It's just these little bumps that it's getting that keeps it in that motion. But that small amount of time that it's not pushing is a time of decompression, and the small amount of time that it is pushing is a time of compression.
Yeah, well, I think Sheila had it right. She said it was the amplitude.
Yeah, it has to do with amplitude. Absolutely.
Well, the funny thing is it's always beat one way and then beat back the other. You know what I mean? It's always in twos, and that has to do. Remember your story you were telling us about the water and the rock, and then the wave above the wave. The energy travels through the air, but it also travels through the water the same way. And it's the break in the two that you could see both, right? It's the same thing with the beat frequency. It's all about the mirror. They do it in math. Right here, we're looking at Elijah, the 3x's they always talk about when they get in there. I think it's, let me look at my board here, YT14. And then you do that Y star, that little star thing, and then T, and then the 14, which is the opposite of it, right? The inverse. We're talking about all the same thing here. It's in math, it's in physics, and it's right there just how you explained it. It all has the same relationship going on.
It absolutely does. And another interesting thing that, maybe we don't look at as frequently as we ought to is when we look back at the, the Tesla circle, the 9 circle there, right? Each chord that connects each point, okay, has a specific angle associated with it, right? And what you end up noticing is that if you measure the angles out, the angles follow the exact same expected pattern, right? So the angles go from 40 to 80 to 160 to negative 40 to negative 80 to negative 160.
Yeah.
So they're doubling and then doubling back. And that is mechanism of not only counter rotation, but also polarization. Okay, which is that other thing. So what the fuck does this all mean? Well, what it means is that it's this thing. You have to understand something. The vector stays the same. Okay, it doesn't actually change the fact that it's headed in a certain direction. Okay, it's headed in a certain direction, but then going to other key points. But the fact is, it's like driving a car in forward, right? You could make a turn without putting it into reverse or moving laterally, right? So as long as you're not moving laterally or in reverse and you're going forward, you're going in the same directional vector as far as this is concerned, the way that this works. Okay, so because you create this inverse pattern without changing the actual direction, okay, which is mechanism of the counter rotation, you have the opportunity to have the electromagnetic forces, but also the counter rotational forces simultaneously, without, really doing too much of anything. But that's the cause of the polarization. The polarization in this case is also the cause of collapse of the polarization. Okay, because once you get the third vector into it, which it has to form once the saturation levels are high enough, what ends up happening is you have a polar collapse, and it goes from a sphere or an actual donut into an actual torus at that point. And the thing that's unique, in my opinion, once you get the density levels high enough, you have enough captured energy, is that you actually have the poles end up chasing each other. Okay, that's my theory on it, is that the poles end up chasing each other in it, creating to greater compression. Because they're not fixed. It's not like a traditional magnet or even a traditional electromagnet in that regard. You know, so the polarization is stable, because what ends up happening is that even though it's in motion and it's constantly fluctuating, it's in lock and in attractive and repulsive state with the other pole at all times. So
Gotcha.
it ends up doing the whole thing that it does, you know.
I think it's important to note that that image that you showed is in 2 dimensions. When you put it in 3 dimensions, it starts to make a lot more sense.
Oh yeah, I didn't get there yet. So
hold on real quick before you do. I just got to make this comment.
Yep.
Tesla wasn't accepting numbers. He was mapping resonance. So this is why it's in 3 dimensions. It makes more sense than it does in 2, because that's exactly what he was doing. He maps points where they go, and then it creates a geometry shape. Just like when you put this thing in sunlight, this 2D image, it shows up in 3D in the shadow. It's the same process going on. So go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, all good. So I'm sure we've all heard the saying, like, you know, you have to square the circle, right? You have to square the circle. And the common response to that is, well, to square the circle, you must use the triangle. Okay, cool. So put it into 3 dimensions. And then when you look at those 2 inverse, rotational axes, you realize that the angles that they form, okay, are that of the side of a cube. Okay, and that of the side of the cube, you realize that the circle is the half, is the 4.5 is what you're trying to square, and you've been able to now square it. And how did you do it? You did it by virtue of creating the triangle. So you must, you must activate the triangle to be able to create the cube in order to cube out to square the circle. And once you do draw it in 3 dimensions, you realize real quick that you're dealing with a Merkaba, is more or less what you're looking at. And that's also significant too, because, it doesn't end here. It also tries to further stabilize, again, in my opinion at least, by once it's stable, it inverses itself again. And that's where the chase comes in. So it actually mirrors itself because it's splitting itself into these coherent zones of opposite forces. So what does this do? Again, I asked it before, what does it do? The answer is that it separates things from their opposites. That's what it does.
Yeah. So hold on, I got a picture to show Joe. Okay, give me a second. This right here is what we're talking about. When you take a structure and you put it in there, you see the 2D represented in 3D. It's all a winding pattern. I just wanted to show that real quick. I had it backwards when I said it earlier. But yeah, the whole importance of this thing is everything's an opposite. Have you ever noticed that? When you get your 2 vortexes, they're opposite of each other. The numbers are apps, but they're not opposite in the way we think. They're fractally opposite.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That's the thing there. That's what get
They're
people
inverse. It's not opposite. It's inverse in that case. Yeah. Uh-huh. So there's a plus side and a minus side. So there's another picture that I drew that looks like it has a 0 at the top and like 2 rings.
Okay, give me a second. 0 and 2 rings. I don't think I have that one. I have the numbers going around, and then I have the numbers going around 2 rings.
Yeah, numbers going around.
Okay.
Start at the 0 top, right?
This one?
Yep, that one.
Good.
Right.
Okay.
So what's interesting about this is all this describes as a waveform. So if you look at this following a Fibonacci sequence, okay, where it actually reaches coherence, okay, it just goes 0 +1 +1 2 3, and then if you notice, the 3 is just opposite the 0, and that's exactly they're exactly the same, just different. So, well, what does that mean? Well, it means entropy. Okay, see, entropy is like the way that I always like thinking about it. 'Cause the easiest way to think about is if you have a box of red and blue marbles, right? And then you shake the box, and you have all the red marbles on one side, and you have the blue marbles on the other. You shake the box up; they're all random and stuff, right? Well, then you don't have to separate them. So how in the world do you separate them? Well, the answer to that is offset differentials and rotation. Okay. And why that's the answer is because in order for one thing to get over another, they can't be the same. They'll just knock into each other and it'll continue. Okay. But if one is a certain amount more powerful or hotter or greater pressure or whatever the differential is, it doesn't really matter. If it's a certain amount over it, it will actually have the ability to roll over and kind of overpass that without messing with it, right? Well,
Mhm.
so what's that differential got to be? Well, it's got to be something like 0.66 on one side and 1.44 on the other. All right, now if you take a whole bunch of stuff that share that differential and you put them into a round container, okay, and you spiral them around, centrifugal force will pull the things into different zones. Now that might not be perfect at first, okay. You may have some of the bigger pieces here, smaller, bigger, whatever. But now what happens when you really start to rack the thing? And then it rides up on the walls because now you're not spinning it in a petri dish, you're spinning it in a cup. So now the centrifugal force rides it up the walls. Guess what? Your bigger portions are going to be all together zoned, and your smaller portions are going to be all together zoned somewhere else. Okay. Now, if they have attractive and repulsive forces at work, they'll start to fall into some kind of equilibrium. Okay. And that's what you're seeing. So when these things are successful and the proportions are starting to look right and the right levels of everything are being put in, it will just do this. Like you don't have to force it to do it. It will just simply fall into this state where that's what it's doing.
Mhm.
And that's what we're seeing with Sean's work. But yeah,
Sean's work is exactly kind of what you're describing in a way. I
yeah,
think it's
it
like
is.
dead on. I think people aren't realize exactly what we're looking at here. There's a lot more going on in the entire thing. I'll see if I can't pull the pictures real quick. Let me see real quick. Right here. Oh, hold on. I need to do it this way. Sorry. Give me a second. So we see this right here. So that picture there, right?
Oh yeah.
You see the little dark zones in there? Right there by the center where it sparks?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yep.
Okay. So now let me give you the next one on this. There we are. We're identifying them.
And there's more than just the two, but those are the two most abundant ones. Yeah.
So it looks like this. But now let's just look at it in this way. This is what Bob Greener talks about all the time. Those two circles. It's the exact same thing. He's putting it in the exact same way. This is why it's important because we're doing the same work. But Sean's got the one that sees it where you can see it. Joe's identifying how it's being built. Okay. And I'm showing you guys everything on the channel. How about that?
Hey, that looks like a Gerald diagram if I've ever seen one.
Oh, that wasn't a Gerald diagram. That was
No, I know
was
that.
actually
Go look at it again.
okay. Hold on.
Gerald
man.
growing circuits again? What's he doing?
Now I got it.
You can't unsee it once you see it. Anyway.
That one needs a bra. Sorry. Oh. No, it's funny how it worked out because they predicted physics of boson and string theory, and there it was right in front of you. It's exactly what you're getting. Yeah, the Tesla car thing, it was something. I had another image I should have pulled and I couldn't find it. It shows it without that Tesla garbage on there. That's all poo. That's he was showing an image of how Tesla has it in there, and that was all crap. We're looking at the actual physics of it. It's building out exactly like it's supposed to in physics in string theory. That's why we've been on it lately. That's why I've been talking about it on my podcast in the morning, because it's all coinciding with what we're doing. The thing that they screwed up in string theory is it starts with resonance. And for whatever reason, they don't want to say it.
Oh, hold on. So this is important before I forget. Okay. About back to 369 for a sec. Okay.
Go ahead.
I was talking about its relevance to Schumann's resonance. Okay. And this is the math that I figured out, and it's not all that complicated math. Okay. If you take 3 plus 6 plus 9 is 18. Okay. And then you add the fact that that extra vector of the 9 creates the 4.5. Follow me here. Okay. You end up with 22.5. Now, if you divide the 22.5 by 3, because you're dealing in thirds, you end up with 7.5. Okay, now if you actually subtract that 7.5 from 783 Schumann's resonance, you end up with 0.33. So it is a third. And that's not, guess what? That's not even defining a frequency. That's not defining a frequency. That's just simply where it ends up natively. It's at 7.83. Once you just do that, that's it.
Okay, just so we understand this in the chat, could care less if Tesla was obsessed with.
Yeah. I was going to say 3D Havoc. How did I get 4.5 again? Because when you connect the 1, 2, 3, 8, 7, 5, and 1, right? That creates the 3 and the 6's relationship with the 9 because of the thirds, okay? And what that ends up doing is bridging the gap and a cross point of the initial sequence. And the cross point is exactly at the midpoint, which is at half the 9, because the 9 is at 12 o'clock. Okay, so that's the other side of the 9. So the 4.5, where that energy is the other point that then connects the 9 and the 4.5. Okay, that creates that third vector. So that third vector is dependent on that 4.5. So that's where you get the 4.5 from. Because what it does is by using the 0.66 and 1.44, okay, what actually falls directly in the middle of them is half of the whole of the single hole, half of the single hole, okay, which is actually a quarter. Because again, it's 1, 1, 2. It's not 2. Even though that, you either get it or you don't. I guess at that point, I've kind of explained it.
So I got 8 over here doing the math. And I'm trying to, listen at the same time.
Oh, and yeah, well, I'm aware that if I divide 7.83 by 3, it's not 7.75. If you divide 22.5 by 3, it's 7.5. And that's what you're subtracting from 7.83 to get the quarter.
Okay. Hold on real quick. I need to say this because I was trying to say it and you got your thing going. So it doesn't matter if Tesla said it or not about 369. It's what it actually represents and going on in physics. I could care less if he said it or not. I just care if it matches what's going on. So just understand that this isn't a debate about whether he said it or not. We're putting down a theory to understand what the numbers represent and what's actually going on. So whether he's obsessed with it or not, I care less. If he's doing this and he's trying to figure out how the fractals work and stuff like that, then he would have absolutely had it in his paperwork. So you couldn't get around it. And it was 0.666, so please stop thinking it's the devil sign. We're not.
Well, it's funny that you should say that.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the opposite side of everything. If you look at it that way, it's not that we're saying anything good about that.
Well, I mean, I don't know why they chose that for the devil, but what it has meant esoterically for much longer than that was it has to do with relationship to matter. So 666 was always relationship with matter, which is probably why they derived it from the devil, because they considered, things of the earth, material goods, to be of the devil. There's probably that sort of esoteric association that occurs. All right, but yeah, 666 is carbon, right? It's representative of matter. And 144, on the other hand, okay, is the 144,000 saved souls, isn't it? It's reoccurring and it's on both sides. When you have both sides, you start to realize that these numbers aren't a whole bunch of hooey-gooey horse shit. They actually mean something, and it's been known for a very long time.
Huh. That's crazy. It's carbon because they always burn people at the stake. I just thought probably unrelated. I want to say thank you to Ulysses, man. Thank you very much, brother. Taking care of me again, man. You're awesome, brother. Thank you. We're finally getting into a lot of the stuff that everybody wanted us to get into, I think, for a while, Joe, is what I think is going on. We got a lot of, how do I say this? A lot of things aligning right now. And it just isn't aligning with just string theory. It's also just basic physics is what's going on. And it ties together with everything so well.
Mm-hmm.
Like
the number one thing that you'll see repeating through all of this is equal opposite reaction.
Yeah.
If you that's the first thing in physics anybody learns, and if you know nothing about physics, that's the one that you remember. And aside from that is what I've been saying all along, which is entropy in general, that under normal circumstances, right, everything is trying to return back from where it came. And everything is energy. And energy at rest is non-manifest and nothing. Okay, so it's just trying to reach a still state again all the time, right? All the interesting stuff happens in these states of equilibrium where the differential offsets are different, between energy and matter. And then you get all these situations where, like, you can induce different currents because we figured out how to do that. And once you could bring energy into the equation, so to speak, and then you're able to manipulate it in different ways, you actually can manipulate it in any which way that was the cause of existence in the first place. But I've said it once, said it 1,000 times, it's all the same. It's all the same. So what you see going on, like, in Sean's experiment there, although it's not 100% there yet, because it doesn't have the level of stability required in order to be self-sustaining, right? You could go down to the smallest levels and see it, or zoom into the sky and see it in outer space, and that's what it all is.
Right on, brother. Right on. So what is causing it not to hit that next level? That's the interesting part here. So he knows that there's a moment of coherence in there, but it's not a continuous moment of coherence. So as he adds and subtracts things to this, it changes the frequency of it. So as you add something, it gains mass. As you subtract it, it removes some mass. And as soon as you start playing with that, you start playing with the resonance in the system, and it overwhelms either side of it to keep it there. So you actually need a system that takes that and dials that back and forth, back and forth. You learn this when you start converting energy to mass, and then you have something drop out and it sits in the system, and then your whole system stops working because you didn't calculate that amount of mass in that system, and the whole thing fails.
Okay, so with Sean's, why is it not stable? In my opinion, now there could be a bunch of like you. It could be like a cure what I'm about to say and find another issue with it. It could be okay, but this is the one that jumps out at me. All right, is the fact that it starts on the pot, okay, and it forms on the pot, and then we know it starts to do the dance, okay, and then when it destabilizes or it's turned off, okay, you notice that there was obviously a vast amount of heat that was occurring in the contact zone with the pot. That pot is heating up, and when the pot heats up, that whole entire zone, okay, is not free at that point to separate its differentials any longer. So it has to fall apart at some point because it's just simply too hot in that one spot without the heat having anywhere to go, because it can't move the pot. It could move itself, but something's always going to be in touch with it, right? So as soon as that gets too damn hot and it throws off the equilibrium, it's gone. That's it. And that's when it gets leaky, and that's when it gets, like it just fails, or that's when it's like you turn it off. It's like, oh, well, yeah, look at all this. And it was dancing around like crazy. It's dancing around because it was trying to get away from the spot that was destabilizing it, because like a gyroscope, it's pretty damn stable. But in that context, it also, because it's not free, it has nowhere to go that it could be sustained. So it's kind of fixed to a string at that point based on the anode. Now, if you were to put the pot equidistant to the anode, you form it in one spot, and then you give it a good spin where the distance doesn't really change, okay? At that point, it doesn't have enough time to heat up to that criticality to fail. So if you keep on rotating the damn thing, you'll have enough of a cooling effect, I believe, okay, to get it to sustain. Now, like a field, if it builds up, whatever, there's no saying whether something just as simple as spinning the pot, okay, would be enough to get the energy density levels in cavitation high enough that you turn off the power supply and then it's still there. And it might be interesting because it may disappear, but it might be on the inside of the pot. You know what I mean? Like it does things like that. Like, bye. See you later.
Yeah, you have to keep it a distance from the pot once it's created. I think you got to pull it. You got to pull it, because even at distance, you're lowering the heat level. As soon as you do that, you need to. If it's going to self-sustain, it's got to come out of the area it's comfortable in.
Now, the trick with that, though, is, yeah, you got to pull it away and slowly and stuff. But the question is it going to polarize and then have an unimpeded spiralytic vortex at that point? Because, I don't know if it would just want to stick to the pot or not. You might just lose the connection with the anode after a certain distance. Unless the energy levels are high enough.
Compress it in and out. I think that's what was so silly. We're missing the whole thing right here. Okay. You compress it in and out to keep the thing formed. Okay. It's like the high voltage capacitor. Remember, you have it in the center. It's open air in the center. How do you get it to sustain or keep high levels? You bring it in and out. Okay. You're bringing a charge state together and you're pulling it back out. It builds out the same way when you look at the string theory and the strings themselves, how they make the round shape and then they go in and they make a round shape, go in, make the round shape, go in. You're pulling it in and out, in and out, in and out continuously. That's right. The state that's going on.
Okay. So, this is a good point you bring up. And that actually makes sense because, if it's being formed under the principles of an anode and a cathode, okay, you have very definite directional flow of energy that is occurring based on that relationship. Okay. And that being said, we've seen that firsthand when it tries to wrap around the top, when he's not trying to build it and he's just trying to see what it does on the bottom. They're wrapping around the top. It's trying to get into the inside, to reach the water, because the water has the greatest opposite conductivity that would, that's where it's at. This is what it's doing, So like it already kind of does that. Now, if you were to create what we're talking about actually out of it, where the system is kind of inverse, but you were able to maintain that also that direct arc that was able to build out at a high enough voltage, right, under those conditions, then that would actually be the containment. But you need the counter rotational force and the spiralytic force already present, not dependent, not the same, not the one that forms to create it. We could go over the creation of it in a few minutes because we talked about that. But
okay, hold on. This has to do with spin state. So the opposite of this together is spun upon itself in a link.
It's a link.
And then it goes like this inside of each other, though. It's two circles going inside, so it's bent over to the other, and that's why you have counter rotation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not exactly the way. It's not on the same level. It's here, but then it's here. You know what I mean?
Correct.
It's not.
It's like probably like 45 off. It's like
it's like there you go.
It's like
that's exactly what it's doing.
And where's your third axis? The one that pulses and compresses it come in. Well, that's what turns it into a ball. Okay, and that's the one that goes right around it. Now, I sent you a picture. It's a very common picture of the atomic symbol. You want to throw that up? Because
which one now?
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Say hi to Mike Faraday, man. Right on, hey, Mike. And Gerald's in the chat as well. Gerald says we're full of shit. Give me a second.
Yeah, that's okay. He doesn't know shit anyway.
You guys are great. Love you all. Oh, man. Here we go. Hold on. Let me find it. There you go. There's your picture.
And I don't disagree with him about the water molecules, by the way. It plays a role.
Oh, what did he say? It says the ball you're seeing is water molecule breaking within the proximity of the elements within the clay.
Yep, that's not incorrect, but again, it's sustaining past that evaporation point, and that's because it's contained. And any Leonard reaction requires a source of hydrogen. Okay, so it's not that I don't agree with you. It's just that by definition, that's what a Leonard reaction is. So, yeah, what's the point? Like, I don't get it. It's all peace and love, Gerald, but like, I don't disagree with you, and I don't know why you're disagreeing here either, frankly.
Well, hold on. Let's go a little further into it then. This is what Sean did in one of his other ones. So now we're seeing it in the gas state in the tube. You're clearly seeing where the center point is. You're clearly seeing the sides come out from it. Again, we're changing a little bit of geometry here. We're changing what it's in. I wish it was in a sphere. You know what I mean? But you could clearly see how it builds out.
You're not wrong about that. Just real quick, because I want to respond to Gerald on this. He says he disagrees because it doesn't crawl around. Here's the thing: is it does crawl around. It's got the footprint to show that it crawls around. And as someone who literally went to school for welding and welded for years, I put anodes to a cathode and had high density energy blasting out from one point to another. And let me tell you, as a matter of fact, that if you are still, that puddle doesn't move. The puddle doesn't move. It doesn't move. It doesn't dance. It doesn't jiggle. It doesn't anything. It doesn't move. If I was to take a clamp to, hold a TIG board, right over a piece of aluminum and just throw the arc on, stomp the pedal, and let it go, and I let go, it's a perfect circle provided that I sharpen the anode good. Okay. If I sharpen the anode good, it's perfect circle. The only thing that's going to make it not a perfect circle is if it wasn't sharpened good. And even then, it's just a perfect whatever it was. It doesn't have a trace line. Like it wasn't jiggling or dancing around. Like that doesn't happen. So, if you could explain the footprint and how, like then that's cool. But that's what it's doing. It's rotational, and it's also showing its instability in certain points too, because I was able to identify certain points where it was actually rotating out clockwise only to come back around itself that way. So like that. So there is instability in there, but I don't think it's not what we're saying.
It says footprint still etching itself. So again, you disagree. Ball lightning is a completely different animal.
I mean, I don't, but we never said it was ball lightning, so that's important. Yeah, nobody ever said it was ball lightning because of it's dependent. It's not free. It's not stable enough for whatever reasons we're discussing to be free. But we were just kind of addressing some of those concerns too, right? That's where the rotation of the pot came in, so it could have time to have the energy densities, and for it to establish to maybe become free at that point. Maybe, I mean, I don't claim to know everything about this stuff, but it's certainly looking like what we're talking about.
So real quick, I wanted to address this picture, and I'll see if I can't pull the video for you guys. I wanted to address it because although it's probably different, it looks the same to me. This is how I see a null zone. It's compression of the sides going into it. It's a center null zone. It normally looks black, but everything that looks black has the most energy in it because we're always looking at reflection. It's literally pulled both sides to it. Now, this is in a tube, so you can't exactly see it properly, but this is exactly what I see in my head when I see the null zone. It's the energy swirling in both vortexes going over the center, where the center looks like it has nothing in it.
Well, you're exactly right about that, man. Like I see it the same way. John Curley in the chat saying something relevant. He says he has a theory that ball lightning has a vacuum in its center. I mean, we discussed that last week, and we tend to agree. Once you realize what the mechanism of what's creating it is, it's got to be. There's like simply no other way because of all the torsion that creates the bifurcation. You have the bifurcation happens first, and then that stabilizes into the rotation. And the rotation, the further it stabilizes, ends up into a vortex. That vortex can only form through bifurcated torsion, because if not, then what's it a spiral of? What's in the center, right? Well, the answer is nothing. It's all pushed out. And then when it collapses, that's as a result of an inverse, it inverting. It inverts and then it collapses. And what does it collapse into? A ball. Well, what's in the inside of the ball? It's a compressed version of what was inside of the vortex, which was nothing because it was all pushed out by the torsion and the differentials.
Okay, hold on real quick. Everything is either an implosion or an explosion, and I agree, except for I disagree on this one point. We're seeing the explosion part. We're not seeing the implosion part. That's the part that makes it self-sustaining. It must feed off of each other. There's no other energy that it does. It's going to take the energy of the environment, pull it in, and it's going to feed the center, and the center is going to go back out. It's going to become self-sustaining at that point, and that's the only way they can do it. It has to have the pulse and impulse in the vacuum.
All right, this is super nuanced, but once you look at it like the on the plus and minus scale, right? You realize that there's a point of that explosion where if the explosion isn't persistent, okay, that is a mechanism of the implosion. Okay, so if it goes into an explosive state, but then fluctuates back down to its ambient state, explosive state, ambient state, it returning to its ambient state, is implosion.
Okay.
You know, it never has to go on the minus side of ambient for it to be an implosive force. It's just simply neutralizing and reversing the explosion, which is exactly what it's doing. So when does that happen? Well, it happens after, you know, like in the case of my little spiral, you know, this thing, right? Right? It happens at 3, right? So if 0 is your ambient, and like I labeled this, right? That's everything, okay, but randomized. Okay, and then it goes into an explosive state, +1, +1, +2. At 3, okay, it's no longer expanding, and it is not collapsing, but it's a different state than it was before. And what happened because it's rotational? Well, like I said before, if there's an offset, then it has become a more organized form of itself. It has organized. Then it will start to implode. Now that organized state will then explode. And then it will go into a greater form of organization. And it will repeat this over and over again until it becomes bifurcated or zoned. It'll become zoned.
Okay. Hold on real quick. I just want to say this so people understand. The center of this thing, they call it a null zone, right? But let me just say it how I see it in my head because I've seen it built out this way. The center is the magnetic state. Okay. It's that ball that's in there that's rotating in a magnetic state. The outside line of this thing is the electric state. Okay. It's held in by the radiant or the weak nuclear field on the outside. That's the way it works. When you compress the inside, which is the magnetic state, you get a strong nuclear force. That's what's going on in this thing. Okay. It's not at the point where it's self-sustaining, so you don't have the weak nuclear force and the strong nuclear force. But when you look at a null zone, that's all it is. It's just the energy itself building out. And then there's only one thing in the center. It's that magnetic field. But that is not correct when you say that because you have to say there's a strong nuclear force in there because you're compressing the magnetic field. As soon as you compress it and give it nowhere to go, it then builds back out and creates the weak force. So you have to see it in that way. So you can't just say it's one thing in there. There is two,
Oh, yeah.
but you have to see it in that way. So it's not wrong to say that it's one and say that it's a magnetic field, but it's still two.
It's still 2, and
it's a state that's in.
the two always, you know, once they come into enough with each other, they always create a third. You know, and that's where this is all at. It's I don't know. It's like it's an interesting thing, man. Like I don't know. Like, but like what I was saying together, like today between you know, that 369 model, you know, and you realize the significance of the proportions and the thirds, you know, and then you realize how the implications of that is zoning and different things that are observable, you know, to us. Then you tie it into Fibonacci and that circle and the implosive and explosive forces. You look at what Sean's doing, you know, and then you look at how I broke apart Sean's what's going on there. That's it. And the whole thing is like you know, like it's really really incredible, and you know, it may take just simple things like I said, controlling in that particular the defect I see with Sean's right now and why it doesn't sustain is definitely that the heat. So right, if you remove it from that pot, if you're able to do that, or if you're able to spin the pot just to keep the cooling, you know, it might build enough to then become sustainable. And that's the key. That's the key point there. You know, at that point, all the little tiny plasmoids that we see in other people's experiments, you know, like even successful ones, pale in comparison. They're not that big. Now that thing might compress down and down and down until it is that small, the same as every other one, for what it's worth. Too, but you know, what do I know?
I have an answer for you. You have to build the three frequencies together to get them coherent, and that's what's not going on yet. The coherence isn't there yet, so it'll dissipate and go away. You
Yep,
got to you got to get it into a state of coherence.
I agree.
That's one of the problems. So Joe says the ozone is totally different. Then let me ask you this: what is it to you, and what is its purpose? I'm game. I mean, let me know. Oh man, we got a lot of stuff going on. Everybody's going on in the chat, man.
That's it. Love
Let
that.
me see what this says. Dan Winter's pyramid wireless power documents shows all the details in the data are talking about with details. I can make wireless power. I absolutely can make wireless power. I don't need a power source on the other side with receiving that has power either. So,
Well, I mean, but what he's saying too is just connecting the wireless power to what we're saying also, which is, again, it is all the same. So it's good. It is all the same.
yeah, I understand we can agree to disagree, but we didn't agree or disagree yet. You know what I mean? We didn't have the conversation yet. That's what I was alluding to. I want to have, you know what I mean? The conversation. Maybe on Mike's show later on, we can get on there and have the conversation on what you think it is so we can go back and forth on it. The last time we did it was absolutely intriguing to listen to. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm getting at here. I don't mind if I'm wrong. I just mind that we look at it all together.
Well, I mean, I tend to agree with Gerald in that point for what it's worth, because what we're considering to be a vacuum is actually full, and I think that's the whole point, and it's what I said before. All and none are exactly the same, and it all has to do with Planck scale. So it's my opinion, and it always has been, that when you're dealing with your null zone, the reason that you're not getting anything out of it, right, is not because nothing is there. It's simply because everything is there. And everything and nothing in that context are all the same, because, you know, a flat line of nothing, frequency wise, is the same as such a high frequency that the node and antinode fall so rapidly on the other side of Planck's distance, okay, that there's no differentiation as far as our observable effect would be, which just makes it a line also. So it is to a just line. It's a bar, if you want to think about it that way, right? A line and a bar, exactly the same thing. One's just fuller than the other, right? And that's sort of it. Now, I mean, when you have that, and you're also tearing apart all the differentials, and no differentials are existing in there, well, now you have the purest state of pure potential that exists. So, I mean, I can't say that I necessarily disagree with what he's saying, but
Okay, it's a depletion point. Yeah, if you want, I want to. Yeah, if he doesn't mind, null zone later on tonight. I get right into it. I'll give you a link now. I think what's going on, and we're into two different subjects here.
it's all connected.
I know it is. What I'm saying, just so you understand, the reason that people think it's different than Greener's work, and I'll just say this up front, is that you're not taking cavitation into the account and removing it in order to see Sean's work. It's the problem. Is you're dealing with resonance, and you're dealing with two spheres in the thunderstorm generator, and it's creating that compression inside. You can call it something else, but it's still creating that pressure that goes on in there. Because of that, and because of the resonance going on, it's exactly the same as getting the resonance out of another source, but it's what it's doing. It's tearing through. It's showing what it's doing. It's showing us, teaching us what it's doing every time it does it. Now, even the one that we see inside of that machine is not self-sustaining. It is sustained by the amount of energy put into it. So that's also not lightning if you want to say it's a self-sustaining thing. You know what I mean? It's not technically the same thing. But as what Bob's doing is showing out that, hey, it is in there. Even if we have to feed it to be in there, it is there. It's two sides of the same coin we're looking at. And I think we're just arguing about BS, to be honest with you. I think it's that pressure that it puts upon it. And you have to have that outside pressure. That's what this thing is missing to self-sustain.
I mean, I disagree with the cavitation doesn't come into play with Sean's clay pot because ball. That's why. Because you're turning a rotational, a rotational movement into a vortex movement that it's polarized. You could see the bifurcation occurring. It collapses into a sphere, and the only reason it collapses into a sphere is because it starts to cavitate due to a third vector being introduced as a result of the first two under the magnetic compression that's occurring due to the vortex. And how fast does it happen? Very fast. The first few stages take a while to build up, but once it collapses into the sphere, it is solely because there is a third vector of motion or third vector of energy in that case even being introduced that is a pulse state. And that pulse state is virtuous of cavitation. And if it wasn't cavitating when you see its footprints and the marks that it's leaving, you would notice that it is literally in a beating pattern, a skipping pattern. It's a skipping pattern because it's skipping off the surface, skipping off the surface because it's in not a pure form of resonance, but it's in a pulse state of somewhat resonance, and it's that pulse that is the mechanism of the ball.
Every time it touches and detaches, changes the resonance in the system. That it becomes a problem over time. It won't allow it to self-sustain. It'll keep going and keep putting marks on it. It'll keep doing all that stuff. It'll transmutate and put stuff on it. It causes a bad problem in the system. And it's not the fact that it pulses. The pulse is fine. It's when you change the resonance state by touching and not touching, because you're adding mass, you're removing mass, you're adding mass, removing mass. As soon as you start playing with that, then you change your frequencies. It really screws up your system. By the way, Gerald, never arguing, brother. Always just trying to get.
It's never, and I could disagree with you, but I agree with you on 1,000 other things. So.
All much love, man. It's part of the community, man.
And you know what? Whether right or wrong, you know what? We are all learning, and always see something tomorrow that makes me go, "Oh, duh."
Yeah, it's arc heating, but it changes the frequency.
It does.
That right now. Well, I show it in my experiments too. When I add mass to something or I put it on ground, all I'm doing is adding mass to it. And as soon as I do, I add energy to it. So it's something that's not well understood in how things are going here. Once you put things in a negative state, as soon as you add mass, you add energy. So I see it all the time in my system. I see it break down all the time, light bulbs, every single thing I do. As soon as you remove the mass on the negative, then the energy is lost. It dissipates down to a lower value. I see it all the time. As a matter of fact, I think I showed it several times just doing that when I added different grounds to it.
Yeah, it's all right. So do I say that, like, I've kind of said it already, but back to what we were talking about originally real quick. Like, it's my opinion, and this is not something I claim to know. All right, like, there's certain things that I'm pretty confident with, but what I'm saying now is it's a big statement, okay? So it's simply what I think. What I expressed to you today about these thirds, okay, on either side of zero, okay, and these types of proportions, okay, these are keys. And that's my opinion of it, all right, at this point. And once you understand that these thirds are keys, and you really, it has to do with the differential of the thirds, which is equal also in itself. Once you realize how harmonious the math is on it and how practically relevant it is, you start to understand that what needs to go in and how things need to be built and everything that it takes, it just follows that format of these particular keys, and I was kind of always under the impression that it's three keys, right? If you control three things about an environment, the rest natively fall into place. This, again, it's been my observation. I believe that's my opinion. And that is what it is. Okay. So my going theory at this point is that 2/3 inverse to 3 seconds. Okay. And then the offset differential being exactly 1/2. Okay. If you have exactly those proportions, all right, then that's pretty much the key. So when it comes to how big you build everything, and the sizes and, the gauge of the wire, how long it is and, with the geometry of it and all these things really ought to be in sync with this formula. The more factors you bring into sync with that formula, okay, you have three of those factors in sync with that formula: the frequency, the geometry, and the material. Okay, then you will have total coherence, and that is your key to getting everything you wanted. Everything you wanted. And just to show everybody how stupid we all are, because we truly are, all right, is that if you understand that we've had anti-gravity since the Wright brothers, okay, then you understand that, it has to do with these exact same three principles, right? And when you break it down, you have a rotating prop. That's one thing, okay? And you have a negative and positive air pressure airflow, okay? That's two. And then you split it in an asymmetric fashion, creating a high and low pressure zone where you've now created the anti-gravity. Whereas the downfall of that is, well, you have to use a rotational force, mechanical rotational force, in order to induce that negative air pressure vector. Okay. And then because you need the ratios to be correct and high enough for the weight, well, now all of a sudden you need a lot of forward momentum to help you build that differential. So now you need to be moving forward as well in order to be suspended. So once you understand that that is anti-gravity, it's just not in the way that you want it or think about it. Now you realize like that the principles are exactly the same. Just insert your differential here and understand that what we want to do is do away with the mechanical rotation and the need for, you know, the forward momentum in order to get the differentials high enough. That's the only difference. And it's like what I said too about 0 point energy. You love 0 point energy, flip your fucking light switch. Love that shit, don't you? Because guess what? You're fluctuating magnetic field around a conductor. That fluctuation is a jerking chain of ether on the conductor. Okay, and then all of a sudden that is inductive of a current, and then it's that current that you go like this, and it goes on. Get your head around it. It's zero. Everything's 0 point energy, and if it flies, it's anti-gravity. Helicopters work the same way. They just do it different. Rotational, pitch 2, pressure differential 3, float. But because of the rotational, now it's like, well, fuck it, throw a prop on the back so we don't spin around. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know, I get it. I
brain monkey solutions to problems.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people have an argument about anti-gravity. Look, it's creating ball lightning is what it is. And when you really get down to the whole thing of it, that's all it is. You're creating a weak and strong nuclear state. You're creating a vacuum inside. You're putting in a high voltage charge and a magnetic charge in the center of it. And that's what it is. It creates a plasma field on the outside, and that's what you do. That's anti-gravity. That's just what it is. The only thing you're missing there is a vector state. You
But
just need
but that's perfect. Guess what? You said three things, and those are the three things that you're controlling.
Yeah.
To gain control of that, and that's exactly what I was talking about with this. Wherever it is there, that's exactly what I was talking about with this over there. Right? You have three things. This thing creates one, two, but then I told you it creates a third, doesn't it? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
What's that one? One side, two sides, but then like a top and a bottom. Oh, that created three, didn't it? Oh wait, they're all opposite and inverse of each other. Oh shit! Look at what happened. Control three differentials, and then you control whatever it is you're trying to do. So that's it.
Well, you know what's funny is we keep showing it, like when I do my builds and stuff, and you show me back and forth when we do ours, right? We're showing it. It's shown. It's not that it wasn't. We just didn't tell you it was anti-gravity in what we're doing because that part particularly wasn't. It was just like the isolated, you know what I mean, thing. But it all matches.
Yeah, no, that's true, man. It really does all match, and by the way, generator, right? You have a permanent magnet that already has a positive and negative, right? I mean, a positive, a north and a south pole, realistically, right? That's already split into two, and then you rotated it. Well, no, it's kind of one. You rotate it, and then that's two, and then you have a wire inductor that creates and captures the flux, and that's three. 1, 2, 3. Thirds.
Yeah. No, it is.
In what proportion to get it good? 0.66, 144.
Yeah,
right in the middle.
See, this is where I have trouble with math. Is they're just doing vector states. They're just doing, okay, which way does it go? You know, I mean, how does it build out? That's a problem. Some of this stuff is cause, some of it's effect, but it all has to be present in what you're doing. So, I mean, as soon as you cause the high voltage potential with the magnetic field, you're going to get counter rotating vortexes in both.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, it's just going to work that way. Whether you know what I mean, you see it one way or the other. The center is always the magnetic, and anytime you compress that center, it builds a force to create your strong nuclear field because it's compressing that magnet. I know I keep saying it, but I don't think people get it. When we did the light bulb on top of the light bulb, and you see it go on, that's exactly what I did. I simply tapped it, and a huge amount of energy came out of it. So, had those things been glossed over with a little bit of paint instead of being able to spark, I could have made a capacitor right there and just tapped it up and down, and make capacitance grow inside of it right there because it was ready for it. It was in the correct state.
Yo, Nathan, where is Ashton Forbes right now? Like, where is he? I need to know where Ashton Forbes is.
I have no idea.
Well, you have to understand why. Okay. Because what Sean's showing, you get that thing stable. What did I just say about the three vectors? Right. When you have three high energy states, okay, then you pop one in. Oh, it's cool. Pop the second one in. Pop the third one in. Well, what do they do first? Like Sean's does. It starts to rotate. But then that rotation turns into two-axis rotation. So what happens when the third axis kicks in once the stability gets there from that dual action? Well, I told you there's a convergence. There's a convergence at the midpoint. That's your third axis. So what happens when you have high energy states, three axis? It's convergence.
It's
See
funny.
where I'm going?
You're funny you say that because the other side has to have...
Right. So you have these spheres that are made up of three parts that instability. Okay. But now you have 3 of them, is 9 parts in stability.
Well, see, it
Okay,
has to
and then
open the
that's
other side,
conversion.
though. You see, it has to open the other side, so there's 3 more. You don't see the other side, but to
You
open
don't
the
see
other
the other
side,
side. No, you don't.
because it's a mirror. If you don't understand the mirror effect by now, man, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, because a lot of this it has to do with it. As soon as you create the 3 points, man, it creates the mirror, but then it has to create the structure as well. So you get to the 3, 6, and then the 9 as you go along it. You absolutely do it. You're creating a tunnel between the two. You're doing an Einstein-Rosen bridge between them. That's what the thing is, but it has to swirl in contact point to contact point over here, contact point to contact, and then they all start to rotate. So you're taking it out of a sphere shape and you're changing the geometry to a tube shape, and then you're creating the Einstein-Rosen bridge. That's exactly how it's done. You're only seeing one side because it's a mirror. That's why it's flat. It's a mirror. It goes into it. It creates that state.
It's absolutely a mirror. But once that convergence occurs, okay, the mirror is on the other side, but on the other side of what? It's on the other side of Planck's distance.
Yeah.
That's what you got to realize. But what the reason I said, well, where is Ashton Forbes? Is because, well, you want to see the formation of your, the same exact process going on. Okay, if you just realize that all that zoning that's going on is the equivalent of the orbs going around. Okay, when one comes in, but then another comes in, the other comes in, they space out. That's your zoning. You add the rotational vector to it, you get your magnetism. But then that magnetism creates a differential. Then all of a sudden, you're no longer rotating, you are then orbiting. And if you notice, the orbs, they went like this, okay, before their convergence. And that's the difference, because you could see the convergence, okay, in Sean's video, and how fast does it happen? Your eye can't see how fast it happens, because as soon as it enters in from that rotational state to the vortex state, the vortex state is magnetic. And it's like I said before, the thing is, there's no fixed poles. Well, what do they start to do? They start to chase each other. And as soon as that chase occurs, that's the convergence of it down into a sphere, into nothing. In Sean's case, it's not going all the way like that. There's just simply not enough there for that to ever occur. But the idea is that the exact same principle, MH370, and what Sean's showing, you can see it with your eyes, and it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. It does the same fucking thing. That's the point. That's why I actually believe that guy. It's, and it's not that I believe him. It's just that what I see matches what I believe that I know. What I believe that I know.
I want to see the 3 RAVs in a sphere of gas, because I have a feeling they're all going to interconnect. Okay, it's going to form this little triangle. Okay, all the vortexes are going to start to align, go from one to the next, just like the beat frequencies. And then I want to see if that center swirls. Okay. You see, it's very important, because it's going to rotate in a pattern between the 3. And then we should see a little bit of a swirl. It'll prove it out perfectly. Okay. And that's why, because I know as soon as you do that, as soon as you see it in the tube and it goes up and down, because you're in a cylinder shape. But once you get it into a sphere, now it can go anywhere it wants. Now, as soon as you get energy to go to energy, energy always transfers one to the next. Okay, it always goes one to the next. So they're going to interlock. Okay, whether you see the energy or not, it's going to interlock. But then the gas is going to show you that bow that occurs between them. That's nice. What it's going to show you. That's the hiss that you hear when you get them too close. When you pull them a little further apart, you get the bow that you can't see, which is oh man, what is that field that Simon says is your dielectric field? It's all present right there at the same time between all 3. Okay. Now I want to see the dielectric pull in and show that magnetic field start to pull. Okay. That's why it's important. It all builds out the same way. Joe and I keep saying it all builds out the same way. We see everything. I don't know that we get it out there as well as we should. I wish we had some big graphs, or some kind of 3D imaging to help out. But
I mean, this is why I try to bring this up today, is because, like, even though it's not a lot of visuals, right? It's a visual, and when we bring up Sean's thing, in fact, Nathan, I don't know if it's trouble, would you be able to either send me or email me the breakdown that I gave you? Because I think that I put it exactly the way that I want to say it, of Sean's thing, and then we could watch it. I'll literally explain exactly what I believe is going on, and
the explanation you gave of Sean things on Facebook, is that what you're saying?
yeah, I sent it to you in Messenger. It was like, like yay long.
Like forever long? That's
Took you a day to read. You literally saw it come in. You're like, I'll get to this.
Okay, hang on. Is it the introduced current?
Yeah, yep, that's it.
That's it? Okay, I got it. Sorry, just take a second.
Yeah, well, can you email it to yeah, I'll drop my email. I don't care. J Lowett at HerefordInsurance.com, because I'm looking at my work computer.
Let me see if I could just open it again. Give me a second.
Yep.
Oh, always things, man. Take a screenshot, take this, take that. Take this down, put this up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you read it off the screen, Joe? Or
Probably not, but I'll try. If I could see a couple of words, I'll just be reminded of where I was going with it,
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, yeah, I could probably read that. Cool. Here, scroll to the top. Oh, no, not in. So scroll to the top. Oh, okay. No, you were good. Zoom out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't, I didn't know where it started. All right. So the first thing that occurs is just, the charge, okay, being inducted into the ceramic and the moisture. Okay. So what you see is arc strikes, plasma forms, the plasma grows and the energy densities increase. Then it goes into a state of induced oscillation, okay, which is sorting into groups and zones in an arcing pattern. Okay, but the vibratory oscillation, it works a lot like a gold pan, and it forces the differentials into zones of their like parts. And that changes the probability of a wave function within that, okay, because of that bifurcation locally. And it also is in a state of incoherence organization. Then it goes into a semi-induced resonance state, where the sorted zones are brought into a rotational vector, causing further sorting of the asymmetric geometric, causing further sorting of zones to asymmetric geometric equilibrium, and coherence to a certain degree, at least in this, is achieved. Okay, so the sorting of the parts is sort of done at that point through the rotation. Then it goes into a charge state where the energy densities of the stabilized zones grow, and that this is shown by the arc frequency reducing, and the rotational forces and the speed increasing. So you'll be able to visually see the increasing of the rotational speed despite the reduction of the arcing phenomena that exists there. And at that point, they invert, creating torsion boundaries, which causes the rotation to transition into a vortice. And then the vortex bifurcation of the asymmetric to achieve asymmetric equilibrium. So the rotational standing wave of bifurcated forces and density stabilizes by inverting, causing the vortex by which the high density states are separate from lower density states with little to no diffusion due to a boundary torsion. The vortex has a magnetic vector in resonance compressing the high density zone and the low density zone into the center, which is exactly what Guy was saying in the chat earlier, right? So you get the low density zones also pressurized into it. The magnetic component polarizes. However, it's my opinion that the poles are not set in their position due to the separation of the differentials, causing the toroidal collapse of the vortex to a toroidal sphere. And the magnetic poles then proceed to chase each other in a locked state of attraction and repulsion, maintaining the magnetic field and the compression, and maintain resonance and the cause of cavitation, being that the whole entire reason that they exist is because of the first two vectors, the charge separation and the spin. Okay, so once you brought the magnetism in, that was the third vector that collapsed. Okay, so that vortex situation, it ends like that. It as soon as it's created in a high enough density form, which given the amount of voltage and the type of frequency going into it, it's instant as far as our perception is concerned. Okay, but yeah, they're in a lock state, which is a cause of cavitation because it's in a pulse state, and the effect of that is maintenance of the asymmetric stability and of the density differentials that it contains. So that's what I'm thinking, and we could watch the video now and see how well that checks out if you'd like.
Okay, that's the video Sean sent earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I think any one of Sean's videos shows that building of it as long as it collapses into the sphere.
Gotcha. Give me 1 second.
And yes, the vortex is another toroidal surface, but it's just a component, and it's just a phase that it goes through, like bang, done. Because that's the magnetism. You know, when a rotational state only has a single vector, okay, which is actually a current vector.
Okay, give me 1 second. I want to look at this one.
Right? Induction. Separating, boom. That's how fast it happens, though. That actually happened too fast to even, like, some of the other ones took a little more time where you could see the charge state separation occurring, but this one just flew right into it.
Well, because he has the bulb there. It's taking away some of the energy. Oh, look at it turn left and right in the bulb. That's just so cool.
Run that one more time.
Yeah.
So it's building, you see it growing. Now it's starting to separate. Okay, boom, that's it. Now, what's interesting, look, when the ball's there, are you getting any radiant energy to it? Why? Why aren't you? Why? Because it's all compressed. It's all compressed.
Yeah.
It's every single bit of it is literally vacuum state into it. And by the way, when it's doing that, you think it's that small or not there? Or is it within the cavernous material or on the other side of the cavernous material, just existing right on the other side or inside? Because it could do that.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Let's check this out, Joe. This is the moment where it starts to build out. Okay. Because it'll do it instantly, so we'll just slow it down.
By the way, Sean, shout out for bringing the gas tube in this regard, because that's a really intuitive way to prove the point of compression.
Trying to get to the point because you could see the lines itself. They immediately build out at the same moment on the film, or like right a smidge before the center point is. See,
It went away for a second. That's crazy.
So as it collapses, the sides come in and collapse. There it's building. So I'm going in reverse. Immediately you get one side. Okay, right there. The reason it goes down to that side is because that's the side where the metal is. That's the side where it goes into the machine. You know what I mean? It's not a gas tube on tube. It's metal at that side. So it's mass. So it immediately tries to ping the mass.
Yep.
And then
That's no ground. So what's it going to do, Nathan? It's going to self-ground off of its own. It's going to build its capacitance to the point where its potential is so high that it acts as its own self-contained ground.
Yeah, this is exactly how the null zone acts in my coils, by the way. There's no difference.
No, I mean, right. I get it, but you can't see that. You can see this. So.
Oh, you can see the energy build out there because you can see the plasma state build out in both sides of the coils.
That's
It'll
true.
literally shoot plasma out of them. And the only way it does that is in bipolar mode, which means that you have a null zone in the center. And then when you put the light bulb up to it, you get nothing in the center of it. You absolutely have a null zone. As a matter of fact, I went over to it and I checked it. When you take your little gauge to see what magnetism is north and south, it'll show north. Only the south part weakens just slightly. It has to be a weaker field. So one of them is weaker, and that's the one that'll show up as south every time, without fail. And that's how it builds, and that's how the null zone goes. You can't see the energy like this, but doesn't mean it's not creating it like this. This is a visual way to see it.
All right. So geometrically, all right. If you're rotating a coil, okay, and you want to go with this 369 method, okay, you could actually, first of all, understand the idea that it's not only that, it's also inverse, okay? So if you invert it 3 times, okay, so that's, what is it, 9, 8, 18, 27, right? You go 27 points, you could, wind it just like, you would expect. Actually, no, you do 6 3 times is what you would do. So that's 24, right? So you do 6 because the other ones, the 369 itself is induced. Okay, so you do 6 3 times is 18, right? 18. I suck at math. Right.
You're doing 3 6 times, is that what you said?
Yeah, you do 3 3 times. No, 3. No, what the fuck, man? Yeah, you do 6 3 times. Yes. Thank you for clarifying it. All right. So you do 3 million times, and then you just basically just waste your money and then throw it in the garbage because what I'm about to say probably ain't gonna work. But no, in all honesty, if you were to actually look at the inverse angles, okay, that you use, and you were to actually invert it by that much each time, and 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 rinse and repeat, you would actually have the same exact pattern in coherence with the same exact thing, and then provided that what you put in it is in those same exact proportions. You get what I'm saying? Like there's a point to what I'm saying. It's just like, kind of a little off the cuff and a little hard to get out. But just by building it out that kind of way, could well, yield a result.
Well, 3 rotational vectors creates the ability to have the gravity in the center. We already learned that.
Oh, well, yeah, I know that. Yeah. It's been kind of the point of this discussion.
I'm just saying, it's the whole 3-ring effect, and we're doing it with fields of energy instead of swirling around mass. I mean, you gotta be able to understand that. That's why the Casimir effect can be done in energy instead of with plates. It's the same thing. You said it earlier, man.
Yeah, like you said, that's the third thing. So that means it's the coherence.
It's compressing and make compression in the center all day long. You know, back and forth. It's 180 vortex going upon itself. It means it's in resonance with one another. It's a teardrop on top of the teardrop when it goes in resonance together. It's literally all the same thing. It's exactly how it builds out. And you're doing the null zone the same way. You got this tornado coming down. It goes down and swirls back over the one on the bottom, and then it comes back up and swirls, over the one on the top. It's literally inside out. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how you want to count it. It's one field going in like an hourglass and coming back out, and another field going in and out just like an hourglass. It's working the same way, but they're in spin.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is, I mean, you could literally take like heat, pressure, and rotational force, like any rotational force, and create the same exact thing. That's the whole point. If you create if you could separate the three things and then keep them, separate of each other, then all of a sudden, bang, there you go.
Yeah, we're building torsion fields. This is what the Russians did. I mean, look, as soon as you create that many arrays of a Tesla coil out in the middle of nowhere like they did, and I'm sure that they were smart enough to run DC in it, not just AC, they saw it. They saw it build out in everything that they did. It's all null zones in each one. Man, they knew it was there.
All right. Well, when I'm the one that also tells you, okay, that you could train your mind. Get this? It's wreck. It's a wreck. Okay, you could train your mind. Okay, to understand separating differentials, being able to zero out and equalize, and bring the things into coherence. You can do this with your mind and literally transmit all sorts of energy. This is how energy healing and stuff works. But I've had proven examples that I don't super want to share at the moment. But like very recently, I was able to induce hypnotic states in somebody by touching them.
Ooh.
Well, and I meant to, kind of. Yeah,
So I got some stuff going on over there.
Yeah. So it is way stranger than you ever could get your head around fully, unless if you do it right. And it's that's how I understand a lot of the other sides of this stuff is all this exact same stuff, man. It's present within you. You could literally pull the nail out of your foot and let yourself go. It's crazy. But I'm not crazy. I live on the real world. You know what I mean?
I think honestly, Joe, you should come on in the morning, man, and just host my podcast, man, and just do an hour. You know what I mean? Of what you're thinking and what's going on, or tell that story.
Looking for a vacation already? You've been doing it for a few weeks. I enjoy it.
Yeah. So, dude, it's I don't want to say this. There's a story about when you were talking to your ex and you could see everything in the garage or the basement, I should say, everything that was in there, where it was, location. Dude, that was wild, bro.
I didn't even. Yeah, it's like a whole nother level. It's like one of those things that once there's no going back. That's the right. They always say that. Once some certain things go, you don't go back. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because it is truly sad. There's probably people out there that are just so already there and stuff that their reality is totally nuts, nuts. They have no idea of what's real and what's fake, and then you get hospitalized. I'm dead sick, and I say fake, but it's not fake. It's just that what's not relevant to daily living. You know what I mean? You need to be able to differentiate these things.
Well, here's the problem: when everybody tells them it's wrong, instead of just developing that state, you know what I mean, and showing them it's right and they're okay, they tell them it's wrong, and then they isolate them in little boxes to try to get rid of it. The thing is, once it's there, you can't get rid of it.
I mean, their life. If you look at Jungian psychology, if the practices were different for people like that, where there was pseudo and not necessarily embrace of their dysfunction, but rather making sense of it for them in a way that isn't committing them or putting them on highly sedative medicine or something, you know what I mean? If you were able to rationalize with some of these people from an early age before this stuff takes off, and then they're just totally, because there could if you just let something like that cascade on itself constantly, you actually are nuts. Like, and that's the problem. Like, there's like got to be reality check sort of stuff, like where you understand where you're at and what you're doing, but there's things that you could share and like energy stuff. And I already saw in the chat, he beat me to it because I was thinking it and I didn't want to interject, but like Kozarev worked with the torsion fields, all that stuff, all the torsion fields that he was working with had to do with screwing with space time and then ultimately connecting to the the higher like shared consciousness. Like that's what torsion fields do. Why? Because coherence, because separation, because as soon as you get rid of all the noise, all of a sudden the barriers are sort of up and broken down simultaneously. Like everything that is disrupting the sense of actual reality, has been pushed out. And now you exist in the scope of reality, which if you present that scope of reality to somebody who, like doesn't know anything about this, they, like that doesn't sound normal. That's not actual reality, right? But that's what happens when you push it all out. We're just full of defense mechanisms, man. Like all this stuff is like all this like stuff that we're talking about, this is all psychology. And I know that that's ridiculous, but this is why I say it's all the same. This is all psychology. And if you look at any interaction, I've been saying this for a very long time. If you look at any interaction that you have, any relationship that you have, you look at it as the same exact thing, right? You realize that it's no different. It works exactly on the same principles. Why? Because it's exactly the same. So it's wild, and your consciousness is tied right into it too. And, there's a reason that your nervous system is basically, an electromagnetic circuit with on-off switches, neural pathways, and all these different things that create and combine to determine your reality. And that's it.
Yeah, you guys get me with that one all the time. You guys you and Eighth nail me on that time thing, and I'm still wrapping my brain around it. That's okay. We won't get into that today.
No, we can talk about time next week, yo. I love time.
By the way, Time Energy is on the show, and right here, he put some of my discussions on his page. I want to say thank you for that, and he translates them into other languages. Which, by the way, watching myself in another language is just hilarious in itself. But I enjoy it thoroughly.
I think it's great. He's getting it out there for a whole other group of people that wouldn't have it otherwise. And he's always got great stuff to say in the chat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know my take on this, but I'll let you take a stab at it. Sean's asking the big question. So what's next for the RAV?
Oh, you know what I'm going to do to it already, right? I mean, you have to know. If you don't know me by now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Tesla coil and I'm going to create some kind of a barrier around the outside of it, and I'm going to run that negative energy, that one wire energy, right around it. And I'm going to see if I can increase the size of the RAV itself inside of it. So I have a feeling it's going to take some rotation in there, like you were saying, with that the pot, the clay pot. But I think we should see if we can't find a sphere of the clay. And I want to see if I can envelop it, just take the whole thing. Because if that energy builds out in at size where we can see it, you'll see those vortexes form right in front of your face. That's my opinion anyway.
I mean, I agree with that. That's actually dead on. One before I answer that, I don't want to lose this. Polygon says that Schauberger said that a vacuum is 66% more powerful than pressure. Okay. And that is the point. That is the differential offsets that we're talking about. So 66% more powerful than when you're looking at some like the thirds, right? If you look at ambient as like, as a one, right? I mean, 66 more, and you look at equalized pressure as what, 6. I need to play with those numbers. The whole idea here is that doesn't sound wrong to me, like the 0.66 is on one side of the equation, but again, if it's more powerful, in my opinion, that means that it's the inverse. So more powerful would mean that it's 1.44%. That's the whole of it, on the vacuum side, right? And then the other side of it would be the 66% with the ambient laying in the middle, which makes that makes sense. That 0.78, because that would actually make it 66% more powerful. So it fits that equation.
Nice.
How do I think? What's the next step for it? Nathan has his idea, and I know he's gonna play with that. You know, for you, I mean, I said that I think the path of least resistance here, which is not usual for me, you know, is literally just to put the thing on a lazy Susan, sit there with a stick to measure it, to make sure that it's got the same exact distance all the way around. Wait for that little ball to form, and then give it like a little spin, a little faster, a little faster. Let it, you know, like that. And I think that if you were to add that rotational force to it, which, by the way, it's not the rotation in this particular circumstance, right? It's actually just the cooling. All right. It's inducing a cooling effect, all right, to allow for the stability to form. So the same as it didn't just turn on and form, okay, the stability isn't just going to form either. You know, like that's got to come with a little bit of time, and that's time that you haven't had because of the heating issue. Give it the spin, see if it forms. Now, you might have to spin it both ways.
Now, is that with
Use
or
your
without?
mind. You might have to spin it both ways.
Is that with or without the water, like putting that little Q-tip around the whole thing, or just in the one spot?
It doesn't seem like there's any. It's working off of moisture as it's sustained anyway. In fact, it doesn't even seem to form until the moisture has been atomized.
Okay.
See what I just said there? Yeah. Atomized, which I wish Gerald was still here, because that's the fucking point I've been trying to make. The moisture is necessary for formation. Why? Atomization and ionization of the atoms. Why? Because that's just another part to create a differential atom. And that's what you need. You need it to form, but not to sustain, because it's already in there. How do we know it's already in there? Because the light bulb doesn't fucking light up. Okay? Like, you got to kind of think of these things out. Where is it? It's in the ball. Why isn't it coming out of the ball? Because it's compressed. Well, I mean, so it doesn't come out of the ball. That's what I said, isn't it? Like, yeah, you have cavitative torsion going on, and it's not escaping. So yeah, I think I think the cooling is, and giving time, cooling and time. Maybe upping the power while it's formed slightly, very slow. Turn the dial.
I also want to cut one of the pots in half, and I want to see what's going on behind it. You know what I mean? As it forms, I want another camera angle at the back of it to see what's going on, just so we can know. That's it. Whether it does nothing or
stupid. Okay, so stupid thing that just popped when you said that, because that was my intuition too, except when I thought about it. Because if you cut the pot and the pot's not connected like this, you might not get it.
So how would you get that picture then? Would you leave some of the area in the center clear?
You could cut a portion out so you could see in while still maintaining. You know, don't cut it in half. Is my point, because I don't know that you'll get it. You might need that current flow around the pot.
Interesting.
You might not, but you know, what do I know?
Well, I don't know.
It's not like we're talking about cold fusion.
I mean, everybody just wants to see the other side of it to see what's going on. You know what I mean? Whether there's a vapor going on back there, or if the water was sucking up in a line to come up there, or if the water plays no part at all in the rest of it. We all just want to know.
Hey, you know, maybe what you said earlier about just tracing the circle with the moisture, maybe that adds to it. Maybe that'll make it grow. You know, like there's You know, that, like Wahoo said, that's why it's called experimentation. Like,
Oh well, yeah, because if you get it to start and then it's burning out with the heat, and then you bring back in the water to it, what is the water going to do at that point? Is it going to kill the thing being built? You know what I mean? Is it going to make it die out again until it reaches a state where it can grow again? That's also interesting. And then if you could take the clay and decouple it from the rest of the clay and just have it a little bit, can you move it out? You know what I mean? Can you create distance? A lot of this stuff comes in. There's like 1,000 different experiments I could do, you know what I mean, within hours and know a lot about it.
yeah, I mean, right. I mean, these experiments are all variable, like small variables. So it's not like a whole new setup every time you try something new.
No, not at all.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Take it over for 1 second. I got to excuse myself for like 1 minute.
yeah, go for it. Yeah, it's very interesting, all the different combinations we could put together to understand this. I do this constantly with coils, man. I put all kinds of stuff in there to see what's going on, put different types of energy and stuff to run it backwards. I think, interestingly enough, if you might be able to take that clay pot, if it has water on it, and create that Tesla coil field on there, then would it separate? That's an interesting fact. Would it then suck it up into the ball and go around it? That's another one. If we create it in a state with a coil around it initially, can we get it to turn on inside of that? That would create a nice giant sized coil that might do something as well. That movie Ghost, yeah. Making the clay pot, yeah. I don't think we're going to be singing love songs though. You know what I mean? That is true though. There's something to it, man. There's something more to this, and I think that's where we're going with it. In general, is there's something more all to this, and it's not a coincidence that it's working out this way. It's not a coincidence it's showing things this way, and it's damn sure not a coincidence that it's building out just like a null zone in that gas. It's crazy how science works when you find one thing, it starts to snowball, because you're in that energy states you need to be in to see it. You've created the correct condition for it, is what I should say. Now we can start to peel back the layers of it. I mean, think about this. The whole idea here is, if you can do this and show it, then you've just changed physics. You just took all of it and completely threw physics on its head, because now all these things are creating. If I'm telling you that the null zone itself grows bigger with mass, that's important, because it's like planets. If you're creating energy in the one that resonates, then the second one that pulls in it just by having that null zone in it, but then the mass that creates around it makes the energy of it much bigger. Just think about the effect that's going on there. You know what I mean? As the planets get bigger, the energy increases in them, and we see it happening in nature. But I'm telling you, this is the way it's building out in the lab. If we just went up to a physicist, they'd be proud to have the experiment that showed exactly what they're trying to talk about when they give their lecture. It's like, wow, you have the null zone. I'm trying to explain the null zone to somebody, but you showed me that it has mass to it that creates it bigger. Wow, we're now able to associate planetary bodies. You get what I'm saying? It's scalar at a distance. It's exactly the way Bearden was talking about it, because it's the opposite side of it. It's why physics hates it, because he was right. You know what I mean? He was describing a feature that he saw going on, but that's what physics used to be. It used to be, let's see it, let's describe it, let's mathematically calculate it, make sure it works. We're not in that anymore.
Now, how important is what we're talking about right now? The answer is that it is the most important thing that is being discussed just generally. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is, this isn't star in a jar where it's emulating that effect, but it really can't reasonably be tapped into. Okay, like the energy densities in that are just not that high, which is why it relies on matter phase differential in order to sustain. Okay, having Even you look at things like Sapphire Project, or you look at any of these major projects that have been going on for running, you know, cool fusion, right? Not cold, right? Cool fusion. Their biggest thing was always containing, right? It was all about containment, sustaining and containing. And that's the phase that we're in now, except nobody's dumping tritium and into it to cause it, and nobody is trying to have to dump inert gas under different pressure circumstances in order to contain it. It's self-organizing. It's self-organizing because of resonance. It doesn't need a sphere necessarily to sustain. Now, maybe in the most efficient forms, like if you were to use a nickel ball, where there's like the very high hydrogen potentials in that. Now at that point you could up the ante. That comes down to speed. It's just like a crystal. And I shit you not when I say it forms just like a crystal. Once it falls into it falls into coherence, it starts to self-structure. It self-structures based on these different nodes of standing wave based on resonance. You put it all together, right? It falls into nodes of standing wave, and then the standing wave has to invert and morph, and that inversion creates an entirely new dimension, and that dimension is another electromagnetic force that then creates something else. You need to be able to see it form to understand what it's doing, and you realize that yes, it's in motion in those circumstances to sustain its bifurcated equilibrium, and asymmetric too, which is equilibrium. People think equal. Equal doesn't mean equal proportion. Equal means that it's balanced. And you could balance things of disequal proportion. Which is sort of the point. So if you build this like a crystal and you have a seed, okay, if your seed, in this case, the seed is probably the moisture in the pot. I think that the pot's actually adding to the effect of how well it's and reliably it's creating, because of cavernous materials effect. You have a secondary resonance effect that's occurring through the oscillation stage that's actually feeding the rest of it. Okay, but that besides the point. If you were to use something hydrogen rich to seed the fucking thing, then you could probably get much higher densities, because water isn't exactly the most hydrogen dense, even though it's two parts. And I think that that's sort of the idea too. So nickel would probably be a good candidate for that. I'm pretty sure that's what they use in Sapphire Project. If you just had a nickel seed, maybe that's the difference between getting the higher densities. You still have other issues, but at the end of the day, like, these seem to be pretty small issues, because the ball is forming. The ball's forming. That's the point.
Are you transmutating the hydrogen and oxygen and splitting it in this? That's interesting.
I think so. But at a very small scale, and it's not continuous. I think that once it gets into the ball state, whatever it took in is what it's transmuting. I don't think that it's taking too much outside environment in, because of how it's set up. But you got to remember something. Sapphire Project, it's a big deal. They feed it energy constantly, high amounts of energy too.
Mm-hmm.
Still considered a low energy nuclear reaction, okay, but still much larger amounts of energy. Well, this is happening in Sean Calderon's, workshop, with the fucking Amazon power supply at a goddamn Q-tip. Do you understand how wild?
Yeah, but I love it, Michael. No algorithm words like quantum, please. He's basically calling it poo. And then, or like when you say the black hole, there's another.
Can we say just entangled without the quantum part? Are we allowed to say that? Because that's the thing.
Well, it is entangled without the quantum part. I guess you don't even have to say quantum in it. It's absolutely entangled.
Hey,
All of it's entangled.
stupid thing. Did you notice when I was giving the breakdown of Sean's thing, I threw one thing in there that I would like took out and put back in a bunch of times.
Which one is it?
And that was that something about there being a change in the probability of the wave function. Okay. And the reason I put that in there is because during the bifurcation effect, you know that there's a lot of wave effect going on in there that is inducing it, okay? Which is the nature of the oscillation and all of the separation that's occurring, okay? But once this separation starts to occur, okay, it becomes more like, it's not that it's collapsed, it's just that the probabilities of where a certain wave would fall in the spectrum of this circle, okay, becomes much less significant in certain areas. So it's actually isolating out that wave from the probability of it occurring at certain spots, okay, which is why you actually can visually see that there's dark spots, is because that wave function, even though it's being observed and is collapsing, right, like it's still not going there, right? So like that's because the waveform wasn't there. Just generally, it's not because you were shooting it through a slit, you see. And that's the difference. So I threw that in there because, I mean, that ties right into quantum theory, which, I mean, you don't want me to say it, but guess what? Like, wave function is the thing, you know, like, and here it is being like observed, yeah, but it's being observed in a way that the probability is certainly not there in certain spots at any given time. And that's how you're actually able to determine that there's a rotational axis going.
I think
Without it, you wouldn't be able to.
yeah, I agree with you. I think it's funny he says things about quantum states, and I always mess with people because it's like everything's just, it's the same whether it's big or small. It's just the values that go into it change and make it look different. You're not changing the power supplies in any of this stuff. Let me just say it that way. There's identifiable energy that'll change it and just make it look different.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Merrick, who I highly respect, he's always got good insight. He says that the size not a phenomenon, though. And you know what? I mean, I don't disagree with that. The whole idea here is that at those sizes that we currently interact with, like, and frankly, the whole point is that this is as above, so below. You're pulling these micro effects that are only observable under like the most strict protocols of physics experiments, and you're bringing them to a macroscopic observable fashion for your eyes to see. And I think that that's where like it bridges the gap, is because that has been the problem. You see all these phenomena that occur at the microscopic level, the small level, right, and bringing them in and scaling them up to the point that it's relevant here has seemingly been an impossibility, but here it is. And that's what I'm trying to expose here. But like, it really is that big.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Joe sent me something on the guy's eyeballs. An eye doctor was talking about this thing, and it had to do with how your eyes perceive things, and they're lying to you, man. And as soon as you remove certain things, you can start to see UV light and everything else. And like they were talking about people who had cataract surgery, they remove the cataract out, and then if they don't put a lens in there, you're able to see UV light, which is fascinating in itself. But it's how it filters through your body and your eyes, and what it's doing to you, the process in your mind, was the best part of that whole thing. It had to do right with the third eye in your head, right in your brain. Absolutely exceptional video. So, but
it really was. The blue light thing was probably the most interesting of them all, and I won't get into the medical aspect of it, but what I will say is this: proven facts, science, not me. Okay. blue light is bad for you. Why is blue light bad for you, but blue things are good for you? Well, that goes way back to what we talked about when things are the opposite of what you see. You see in photonegative vision as far as spectroscopy is concerned, right? So when you see something as blue, it reflects blue. That's why you see that it's blue. When you see blue light, well, that's blue. Okay, there's a difference between source of emission, wavelength, and reflected wavelength. So when you eat something that's blue, it actually deflects blue. Apparently, blue light is very bad for your mitochondrial health. Like that's what doctors are saying. I don't know anything. That's what they're saying. But when you take like methylene blue, for instance, interesting, it actually stains your mitochondria and then protects against that. So there's got to be something interesting to do with that band of wavelength and biology just generally, which I haven't really explored. But, I thought that part of it was super interesting because it goes directly hand in hand with frequency and light and vision and the way we see things versus the way things are.
By the way, here you go. There's the link in the chat right there for that video. If you guys wanted to check it out,
Highly
it'll
recommend.
blow your mind.
Very good. Yeah, he's a neurologist, and he's my kind of neurologist. Like, you got something wrong with you, that's the kind of guy that you want to go see.
Yeah. So, yeah, blue meat. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah. I always found it to be what Yanni said. Oxygen seems to be correlated like the sky. Well, what I always found to be interesting is that our sustenance of life being oxygen mostly, right? Like our need to breathe is the most corrosive and destructive substance that we know of. In fact, it is the mechanism of anything else being corrosive and destructive. Which makes total sense. Okay, because if you think about why water is H2O, how hydrogen wants to return to an energy state, how decomposition, feeds the breakdown into simpler forms, including like methane, which is hydrocarbons. And then you start to really understand hand in hand why they coexist. Because you have one that breaks it down into the other, and it facilitates that process. And it's by virtue of that process that is the abundance of water. Oh, wow, look at that. That's crazy, isn't it? You could just take it right back to the fucking roots, bro.
It all makes sense once you understand it.
Yeah. I mean, people don't really see the connection, but it is what it is. I mean, I actually have like a weird theory that I don't know if I believe or not, but like I thought it at times, so I'll say it. But I think that the reason that oxygen is so significant to life has less to do with what it is as a carrier and more to do with the fact that you create pressure differentials and its fractal size in proportion to metabolic function. Okay, so in other words, it has nothing to do with what it is chemically. It has everything to do with the fact that you're pressurizing it, squeezing it, taking it in, and then that differential lets it out. That exchange is able to be made. And then that particular fractal size of the molecular structure is coherent with metabolic function that is alive and destructive to that which is dead.
Wow. I never thought about it that way. I guess it's a different way to look at it, huh?
Biology. Biology is chemistry is physics. It's all physics. And it's all the same. Like whatever, man.
Wow. Oh, man. Yeah, I think I'm going to have fun this weekend, man.
Yeah, what you doing?
Finally have a weekend that I don't have to go nowhere. I don't have to go move furniture. I don't have to go pick anything up. I don't have to take anybody anywhere, man. I am going to light up my garage. I'm just going to do experiment after experiments on my list. Yeah, not that one. No, I don't partake in that, even though I wear T-shirts that show it. Apparently, yeah, I used to, but that was younger times.
I mean, that's a whole other posture, and I don't know that that's YouTube friendly, but it's more like your
I,
shirt.
oh my god, dude, the things that I think of that are so bad for you. When you start shooting energy out of the top of a cylinder, you start thinking of bad stuff. And what the 3D printer, it makes it even worse because now you can make the shapes around it to look like it, and then it's just
It's awesome.
that's so terrible. Oh
So,
god.
so this whole weekend, you don't have any roaches running, putting your leg hairs up, or so they can see them go back down, or nothing like that.
No, man.
No, no roaches.
No roaches. I just get to finally have some free time. I finally built out a bunch of stuff, man. I got more to build out, but I don't have to do it necessarily this weekend. Yeah, it's time to clear my workbench, man. There's so much stuff on it. Just oh my god. Just here, watch. I'll show you. A bunch of stuff's just hanging out over here. I've been building and building and building, and that's like not even all of it. That's just like a third of it. It's all around me, man.
Dude,
There's a bunch.
you
There's a bunch in the house
you
that's
are
already built.
surrounded with stuff that you said you're having a good weekend off. You have a good weekend wrapping things up, hopefully.
Oh my god, dude. Well, think about it. I probably have close to like 30 coils. I'm going to make something big before I sell them out. Like you're getting a coil that's tested all right. Let's just put it that way. We're gonna you're gonna see some energy, man. So yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing that. Out in the little brainchild that we've discussed with the cones and such.
oh dude. So I dedicated a printer to it. I got in my 0.20 nozzle. I dedicated a printer just for running that alone. So it's just going to run all geometry coils. And I've already built like 4 of them in my CAD. I just have to print them. I did the one. It's ready for epoxy. I haven't gotten to it yet because I was working on this stuff over here. That's my next step. Okay. Cool. That's on like the first thing, you know what I mean? Hook it up, do it.
Yeah, we need to see it because like that coincides with everything we're discussing. There's a potential that this might actually, you just turn it on and you're like, oh, look at you, huh? That.
Yeah. Dude, there's more to this, and I didn't really think about it until I started following the energy and how it's going to flow through some of these coils as you're thinking about how things are built. And it just kind of hits you like, oh my God, what am I really doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because energy moves through a system, so it's going to resonate in 2 teardrops, one side then the other. In the other one that we're talking about, the cones, it's going to resonate one side then the other as it passes through the energy. It's going to naturally do what we want.
Well, the original context that we talked about the design of that particular coil, the original context, right, is actually opposite context of what we're talking about when we're talking about Sean stuff, right? So the funny thing about it is if you fucking flip that thing up, if you flip that and invert it, tip, and you have 2 secondaries. Now you're talking about where Sean's at. Then now you're talking like, see, then that's the difference. And we can talk about that. Like, I think that's something to be, played with at another point in time. But like, I know the diagram that you had originally sent, and I was like, okay, yeah, we're replicating this, and this is what it's going to do, and this is the purpose of it. Definitely good for that purpose, but also good for that other purpose too. And that ties right back, by the way, we'll throw it all the way back to when I was talking about Pius, Sal Pius, and sort of where he was going with things. That's right along those lines when you bring those geometries in and invert it like that.
Hold on. Let me just say this so we all understand it. If you believe Sal Pius is right, just understand this. I told you exactly how to build it already 100 times. Okay? So you got to understand when when I told you that there's a strong and weak nuclear force, that's exactly what Sal Pius told you. He told you compress the center, you get it down to the Planck scale, it builds out to a super huge thing, and it builds out in the weak nuclear force on the outside. The inside stays strong. He's telling you that there's geometry structures in it, that it's forming it. He's telling you everything.
I mean,
that
he was right all along. It's not a matter of it being right or not. It's just like the whole. Okay, so where is it, bro? Oh wait, oh, it's underneath a government secrecy order. Oh, cool, thanks, nice.
Oh, see, man, it doesn't matter if it is or not, and I don't think people understand this. If you take out all the garbage around it, and you just look at what he's trying to say, and you know that's possible, what system gets you there? That's what you have to look at. This is, I think, where people get all screwed up. I don't watch certain people. I don't watch these people that say, "Oh, we got this thing in the government. I went to the government and did this, and I showed this." I give a fuck what they got to say. They're completely useless to me. What I care about is how the technology is stated to be used. Okay. Once you tell me that, there's only certain types of energy, and I can just go back and look at what it is and exactly how you created that. You see, if you understand all of this is the same, then this becomes a very easy equation to look at.
So Sal's way of doing it was very interesting, and I'll expose it for exactly what it is. I don't really give a shit. All right. Remember what I said about the 3 parts, right? Well,
Mhm.
when you're using scalar, mind you, scalar being a vector, okay, specific vector, and you're collapsing other scalar, you automatically have 3 components because you have an inward, an outward, and then the result of the 2. And that result of the 2 is enough to potentially hold stability if you don't overload your system. And I think that that's sort of where the the fact that it seems, as far as I could tell, that his patents are transducer based to a certain degree, almost like a spark gap, but like a spark gap that's not throwing spark, it's throwing scalar. And then the culmination of that in the epicenter is the reaction, and then your pickup. So you have 2 opposites, but in a state of opposite vector, but intersecting propagation. That causes the reaction of the collapse, and then at that point that collapse falls into the asymmetric equilibrium, the whole thing that I fucking described, and this thing and that thing, and then next thing you know, you got the ball, and because you're using transducers and it's sort of at a distance, it's kind of contained, and then you're not relying on like some kind of external ceramic cavitation, like the like moisture, like you're not depending on any of that shit at that point, because realistically the thing about scalar that defeats all others is that it's picking up everything that it's everywhere it travels is picking up. So when it collapses, it's the sum of all. And that's sort of the deal. That's the rubber band. That's the snap. Like you don't really get that so much when you have other manifested electromagnetic properties. So that's sort of the benefit, is it's like a little bit of a shortcut, but it also has a lot greater potential because of the distance traveled, and a lot stable, more potential for stability because of the distance that has to be traveled in order for the event to occur. That keeps it away from the material. So as long as you could prevent that electromagnetic snap, right? The return to sender, the reverse EMF that fucking would decimate whatever's on the other side, right? How do you prevent that? Well, the instantaneous production of the third vector. So as soon as that happens, that third vector has to kick in. And if you don't get the pulsation off that third vector, then you don't have the containment, then it snaps back, and then all you have is an F-18 growler, right, that blows up, a satellite array 45 miles away by literally sending scalar at it and then having an interference pattern fucking collapse that scalar right back to where it is, cause a huge EMP effect, except it's so explosive that it literally inducts into all of the electronics and literally melts it down. Literally. Like not like, oh, it doesn't work anymore. Like no, melts wires, sets things on fire, like the whole works. Material failure, right? So that's an F-18 Growler. This is a small scalar system with transducers, like same deal. Before we move on though, Polygon said something like 1,000,000 years ago, and I've saved it. Okay, so he said that suction, even when its graduation is not controlled, it's more effective than explosive pressure. Therefore, when mechanically produced, it must carefully adjusted and regulated according to certain definite rules. It is in a transposition, quite obviously. Sorry, my eyesight at this distance is not the best. Must be allowed to take place when the predetermined period of time must be fully controlled. So it's actually interesting because Nathan and I had a thought experiment one time. My thought experiment was, what if you have something that's lighter than water but seals, right? Falls, implodes in a controlled fashion, and then floats back to the surface only to close again and fall again, right? And that's sort of the same-ish idea. And that would be, if you could capture all that explosive energy off that reaction, it would be orders of magnitude stronger than an explosion of the same. So I agree entirely.
Okay.
Yep.
By the way, scalar fields are key to everything. You know that, right? It's literally once you create gravity, you have your scalar field. It's I don't know how to describe it. Gravity isn't what you think it is. Everybody talks about rotational mass. Well, that's only one portion of it. Mass it induces the energy on the outside. It's an energy state in what you're looking at, and you're not. I don't want to say this. It's the same thing as saying you're not looking at the speed of light. That's not what you're calculating there. It's not the speed of light. It's the speed of the energy. Light works in waveforms. It only comes out in particular waveforms and particular distances. You're not going at the speed of light. You're going at the speed of the energy travels. It's a misunderstanding, and it screws people up in the head because they keep talking about light like it's the greatest thing in the world. It's a simple waveform that has a distance to it. That's it.
All right. I'm going to hurt you,
energy.
Nathan. I'm going to hurt you, and you're not going to like this. Okay.
No,
because I agree with you, but then it falls into my agreement with you. It hurts something else that hurts your head. Okay. Which is that time space, okay, does not have a third vector. Okay. It's a chart. Okay. And it's a bell curve on a chart. And depending on where you fall on this bell curve is the way that any one of these things is manifest in reality, if you want to call it that, I guess, whatever, how it influences you. Okay. And that means that time and space is all subject to where you are on this bell curve, and that is very adjustable, which means that where you are in time is very adjustable on this, you see. But that's not me. Actually, who put me onto that and made my brain click on that was Isaac Bentov. Like he said that it's all it's all relative, but it depends on where you are on this chart, which he produced. And he's like, here's the chart. So if you're here, space is less, therefore you could traverse more over the same amount of time. You see, it's all relative. Relativity wasn't wrong. Relativity was fundamentally right. It just set rules that led people down the road of asking the wrong questions. Okay. And putting themselves in a box that they didn't think could be broken because of the you know, if you put yourself in a relative state and you say, well, this is where it's at, it can't be, you know, it can't be changed, then you're fixed on the chart. But once you realize that that part of it's not true, all of a sudden, time, space, this, that, the next thing, none of it matters all nearly as much.
Mm.
And it all has to do with Planck's distance.
Yeah.
Or Planck's scale, I should say, because we're dealing with time and space. But, you know, you get the gist.
I use space time for what it was intended for. I take a huge poo and I flush it, and I get space time as it goes whoo, right on down to the hole.
That's it.
There's your flat surface going down to your big hole. Okay, space time. Dude, I think somebody came along and added the Z afterward. They write it as two-dimensional. They literally do. These people drive me absolutely insane. They are allergic to geometry. Every one of them. It's a big poo hole, is what that thing is. I don't like it.
I mean, it really is all the same, though, man. But like, realistically, like you realize that ratios and fractions are geometry, and then like like once you realize like it's kind of all the same, it's all related. You have certain angles and stuff, and have certain shapes, right? It's just incompatible. Like you need certain configurations, angles, proportions in order to have certain geometries. You know, it's all actually born out of the fractions, but the fractions themselves, what are they born out of? Well, that's the relationship of two different things and their offset differential. I've been saying offset differentials for so long that I feel ill. You know, like I mean, like it's all just about the relationship, the difference, and where they meet in relation to the ambience. Like it sounds profound and wordy and whatever, but like it's really just that simple. You know, that's it. That's
Okay.
it. Offset differentials. That's what makes airplanes fly. What makes UFOs fly. It's what makes energy come. You know, like it's what does everything. The only thing that fucking actually exists.
Oh man. All right. Now you got me going, man. I keep thinking I get in like a bad mood, man, when people bring up space time. It is like
I'm sorry.
that.
But that's why I said I was like, I'm gonna break your head a little bit because unfortunately you can't sit there and make that point without the other being right there.
It's like a viral reaction in my body. I just want to throw shit at the screen as soon as I hear it.
All right,
It's like we're waiting in it. I'm gonna throw it right back at you. Is what I feel about it. It's like it's such a poo maneuver, dude. It's anything. You don't see things as flat. They're just not flat. To quit showing me flat stuff, dude. Quit putting dimensions on a freaking XY axis, dude. We don't live in that world. It bothers me. And the fact that they go, oh, we added a Z. No, you didn't. You added a Z and then did algebra, so you kept it flat. We're not stupid here.
See, no, no. But here's the thing: what I just showed you today with 369 added the Z axis. You have to understand that. That's it. It's an effect. It's an effect. It's not the inherent state. It's the effect. So get this. Let me fuck your head up so bad right now because this is bad. This is so real. If everything else just has a flow, and that flow doesn't even need to be stated as to what it is, okay? But the effect is a beat frequency, okay? Then the beat frequency is the pace of the time. You get it? That's it. Everything else doesn't have to have a frequency. It's just gonna have like kind of a disturbance. But if that disturbance forms a pattern, that forms an interaction, that forms a beat frequency, now you have time. Why? Because that is what's that? Time. That's time. So guess what? The third axis is time, but it is not 3 axis. That's what's critical to understand. It's dependent on the first 2. It is only 1 axis, and it spots in and out. And that spot in and out is exactly what Planck said with the Planck distance, with the Planck scale, because Planck time, okay, has a certain fraction of a time that below it, well, there is no time. Why? Because of the compression or decompression, but mostly compression. You know, that's sort of it. Like, you can't have a smaller fraction because you can't break it down to a smaller part. What does that mean? Well, that means why do spheres form? Why do toruses form? Because it fractions out, diffuses, diffuse. Oh shit, reverse. Okay, reverse, cool. Go back to stable state. Oh, now we're recoalescing, right? This is what we've all established. It all, like, none of it doesn't make sense, because it all makes sense once you realize the scope of it, which the scope is everything, and it's all the same. That's it. I sound like a madman, except I'm making sense of it for you. So,
yeah, you know, some of this stuff, they say the universe is expanding. The universe expands and contracts all the time. It's how long it takes to do it is the only thing. We're at the wrong scale of understanding time. The universe can take, I don't know, how many millions of years to get through one single process that we do in a day. I mean, that's what you got to understand. Is time dilation's in effect. So it seems like it's an expansion, and then when you think several million years later, it's going to be in contraction at that point. And it's only in certain things, because it's a perfect sphere that builds out from it. It's the wave on
all
the
right,
outside.
check this out. We're in the center of the torus, bro. We're in the null zone, where it's all dense, but it's all like
So
matter
if you dare
and
tell me we're in a
energy,
black hole,
and no, we're not in a black hole. No. We're in the center of the torus. That's why time is subject to us, because you see, what's in the center doesn't necessarily just simply move out. Everything goes around it. Okay, and that acts as a conveyor belt. Okay, pulling that. It's that pull around, that expansion, that contraction, that cavitative effect, that pull. Okay, that is the movement of time. Now, depending on where you're at, is how subject to that you are. Okay, but when you're in the center, that is you being subject to time. Why do you think you look back? Okay, and all you see is the Big Bang still. And then you look kind of closer, and it's like, well, here you are, and you're in the middle of it. But then you look forward, and you're like, well, there's nothing there. It's because you're where you're looking in that direction, so to speak, right? Is the state of where the compression started to decompress. Okay, but then when you look the other way, all of a sudden it's gone into a state of diffusion again. It's the exact same but inverse, okay, of what's happening on the outside, right? So I said, you get 0, then you got 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, so on. You have this reaction going on until it just reaches a certain point where it's fizzle, and the fizzle recoalesces in the opposite direction, and then it comes to the top, and then what does it do? It compresses more and more and more, and then all of a sudden it's expanding again to redo the whole entire process. That is the belt that's driving the time. Okay, and being stuck in the middle of it is everything going around you. Now, will you get sucked at the other end at some point? Yeah, sure. But relatively to how we experience time, probably not. The slow drip on the hourglass, man.
yeah, I think science doesn't want to say ether, so they say black hole. We're in the ether. The whole thing is ether.
We're in the ether.
Yeah.
I agree. Make ether great again. Buy a shirt. Buy a hat.
People, they're fascinated with black holes, is what it is. Like we say hole's a joke here, but they're fascinated with it, man. They got to have a bunch of black holes running around. It's how they do their science.
Well, what happens? What happens when you realize that a black hole is probably just a sidebar eddy current outside of your dimensional perspective, because you're in a state of compression? You know, it's funny. I said the other day, like in fact, this was yesterday. My dog was inside, and I was outside. Okay, he sees me, and he's like pawing at me, except it's at the door, and he's like, What the fuck?" You know what I mean? Like that. And the answer is, well, I'm out here and you're in there. And, you know, like you just can't simply paw me like that, you know? And it was funny because he looks at me a certain way, okay, when I'm there. The way he was looking at me was different. It was like the way that you look at a television, okay? Because guess what? For all intents and purposes, I was on TV on the other side of the door. And that's the whole entire point. Thing is that you never get the full picture looking outside the door or through the glass, you know, in that, especially when it's curved. If that was a curved glass, I'd look all sorts of different, right? Especially if there's compression and torsion and all these different effects going on. But that plays right into my whole idea that we're in the middle of the snow globe. So, you know, I'm at least, if anything, I'm consistent, right?
Well, you know, they say the black hole forms when two stars die and then they coalesce around each other, right? And what happens when they die? They strip off the outside feel of them. What's left in the inside in any star or any planet's magnetism. It's 360 degrees of it, though. It's not one side and then one side. It is literally plus and minus the whole time. So every time they come together and pull apart, they're literally doing this. That's it. And they're at, see, we always look at it as the yin and the yang like this, but it's not like that.
No.
Like this. And then as they go like this, each one, as they come over each other, just like two magnets on a spinning disc to each other, they pull in and out.
Well, so like you just said, okay, there's so many axes of interaction and rotation in that circumstance that it's way beyond the you know, types of things that we generally think about when we're thinking about orbiting and rotation, because it is like this. It's inverse and then back and then closer, but they're also pulling in and out, but they're also rotating and rotating. And by the time all these forces, this is why they don't just smash together and that's it, pieces. Because gravity would dictate. Like, I mean, if I just drop one thing into another, boom, there it goes, right? No, that's not what happens here. You know, there's way more effect, and all of those effects lead to very, very complex vectors of motion that occur. Now, all of that is cumulative of energy. And when you have high energy and high density, and then they ultimately do coalesce, well, then the result is very unsurprising, especially if that coalescence reaches a state of asymmetric equilibrium, differential offset. Asymmetrical equilibrium, differential offset. See? Because then all that density just like coalesces. It's actually, what is it doing? Wait, talked about this. What happens when the poles form again, but they have no fixed base? What happens? They chase each other. To what point? To infinity? Probably.
Yeah.
So what happens? Because imagine the gravity that forms, the greater and closer they get. It's not even that they ever collide. See? But what does that cause, eddy currents? I'm just saying, you know, like, so bang, here you go, physics.
Yeah.
Take that one.
I still can't believe they said we're in a black hole. They hit you with space time and say you're in a black hole. I get it.
So I mean, what if the black hole is not the collision, but rather the wild gravitational effect occurring by the ever compressing coherent chase? Okay, you follow gravity well, but what happens when your gravity well is pressing equally on each other and it's just in a state of ever growing density and compression, and then you have all this perturbation effect coming off of it? Well, then it starts drawing everything toward it. So I don't think that there ever has to be a collision. In fact, I think the collision would be the end.
Well, maybe.
I don't know, man. It's not like we're talking about the most complicated things in the world.
Yeah.
Black holes, fucking low energy nuclear reactions,
Yeah.
causal effects.
Some of this stuff is meant to be made fun of. I mean, look, whoever thought it up, I think they just had a beer and told you what came out of their mouth. I think dude, it was made to be made fun of. It's total crap, and they know it. Like, how did it come out as a theory? We were all sitting around the campfire that day and just do something out there, ripped it right out of your butthole and said, here it is. And then they go, oh, man, that sounds so great. Let's do it. They'll never know the difference. Let's just throw it out there. And then the guy goes, let me tell you with the straightest face possible, it's a black hole you're living in, right? And you're like, dude, that's he's lying right through his teeth, right? And while the rest of us are lying, there's a bunch of sheep going, oh, man, we're living in a black hole.
We're inside a black hole.
Yeah.
Of two things chasing each other indefinitely and just endlessly compressing. Yes. Sure.
Dude, it's so funny. Just some of the stuff they come out with, like they must have been sitting on the crapper coming up to space time. He's like, oh, I gotta get this out. They got space time. It's got to flush. That's the way I see it. These people, they just throw anything out there. It's like, because one theory is more ignorant than the next. They must have told it to themselves 1,000 times and got convinced that it must work. Okay. But they never checked it. They're like, yeah, I could change this number here. Oh, well, the formula is not the formula. I could shoehorn this in there.
Yeah, budget. Right. Make it work. Make it work.
That's like, just a rounding error. That's a rounding error, by the way, over there. Yeah. Even though the amount of energy in it can kill us all, that's a rounding error. You know what I mean? They do that shit all the time. Drives me nuts, man.
Well, I always say it, man. And in today's day and age, more so than ever. But frankly, for any intelligent person who's really in touch with things around them, that can look and see things for what they are, okay, like in their environment, like the answers have always been easy. Answers have never been hard. All right, pretty much anybody out there, and it doesn't matter what you know or don't, or what your level of understanding is, you almost probably have all of the information that you need to draw the conclusions. But there's two factors that create the third. Sound familiar? Blah, 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 right? One is you got to care. Two is you got to ask the right questions. That's the hard part. That's the hard one, okay? Because you sit there, you ask the wrong question. It doesn't matter how many answers you have to the wrong question. Fucking, you're never going to get the right answer. Or the result, I should say, right? How do you get the result? Care, right questions. Answers come, bang, you get the third, the right fucking answer. It stabilizes the force, and there you go. It really is just here, and unfortunately, like, and I hate to say this, but it boils back down to psychology again, okay? Because if physicists had a psychology degree, but not like a real psychology degree, like one that you should have learned that you didn't by paying 6 figures to go to school, like, they would tell you that the thing standing in your way is yourself and your ego. So you can't worry about being right or wrong. And it's like I said with Gerald before when I disagreed with him. I was like, I see it a different way, but I'm not even sure that what we're saying is different. See, that's the difference. And I'm going to say it publicly. Gerald's asking the wrong questions. He's not seeing things from the perspectives to realize it's the same thing, you know, because the exact words didn't match up, and that's fucking silly, you know, because I agree with it. It has to do with the water vapor, because at the end of the day, there's ionization of water vapor, there's splitting of the molecular structure that gives you your hydrogen component. Hydrogen components needed for low energy nuclear reaction. Here we are talking about low energy nuclear reaction. So where the fuck do we disagree? I'm confused.
Well,
You know, but like, because I didn't say it's because of the steam, well, then I have no idea what I'm talking about. Yeah, whatever. Okay, that's fine. It's just a component. But at the end of the day, that's what I've said all along, isn't it? Let me revalidate myself a little more. All hydrogen is the energy-like matter state of plasma, which is the matter-like energy state, the two sides of the coin. So of course you need that if you're going to have plasma. Why do we have plasma generally? Well, because we're an atmosphere. There you go. And honestly, I don't know that plasma can necessarily be created of, like, in the form that we're familiar with, anything but hydrogen. Why? Because it's the same fucking thing. That's why. Of course you need goddamn hydrogen. It's the other fucking version of hydrogen, for Christ's sakes. It's the energy version of hydrogen. I've said it for forever.
when they use ion wind, do they not use like xenon or something like that? What do they use in that in space?
Different inert gases, but what do you think it all breaks down to?
No, I don't disagree with that. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I mean, well, they use a lot of inert gases because they don't have the levels of containment that they need to prevent. So that because they don't have the self-sustained cavitative effects, okay, they need to use inert gases the same as you need to use it in welding to prevent contamination of, you know, your metal that you're welding. Like,
gotcha.
you need to create a curtain, you know, of contamination to prevent oxidation. Because remember something, well, what does hydrogen and oxygen always want to do? What does it always want to do? Especially when it's charged. Well, it wants to coalesce into water, right? So you need to be able to prevent that coalescence. And how do you do that in the context of welding is with inert gas. And to sustain their low energy, you know, nuclear reactions, well, they need the inert gas because they don't have the self-sustained cavitative effects.
Interesting. Yeah, I kind of agree with that point. I don't think we're talking about different things when it comes to Gerald. I think it's just a word difference.
I hear what he says, and I'm like, why, you're disagreeing with me, but I'm like reading what you're saying, and I don't know that I disagree with you. So why are you disagreeing with me? Because I don't disagree with you? I don't really understand, you know, but it's okay. I'm not proud about the words. I'm just there to the point, you know, when the point's the same.
But everybody sees their view of this through their system that they build. So their description of it's based on the thing that they build it in. But once you build it in multiple systems, you have to account for what is the underlying similarities, you know what I mean, that are going on. Then you start to see it differently. If you're only working with one system, you'll never see that.
Well, that's why I said when Gerald was on, I was like, you know, in the chat, I said, I don't agree that you don't agree with me. You know, like, it's not that I don't agree with what you're saying. I just don't agree that you don't agree with me. We're seeing the same thing.
Oh my God.
That's where the disagreement is. I don't know.
Dude, I was sitting there the other day, and it's so funny. It seems like the stupidest thing. I sat there with my wife, and I says, okay, we got to go eat, right? Where do you want to go? Well, I don't know. Okay, let me tell you how this works. I'm driving, therefore you must give me a place to go. Okay, so I don't know is not the answer here. You know what I mean? Pick something. You know what I mean? I wanted to explain how that worked to her, but it's like then I would never get anything else in the rest of my life. It was like this works as a causational relationship. We need to go somewhere to eat. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We can't sit here with the thumb up our ass. It ain't gonna work. You know, drive me nuts. Anyway, that's just a personal story. I don't know where it came from. Just out of the blue, it popped in my head.
Listen, I love that. That's great. That's what it's all about. But in all seriousness, man, we cracked the world open today. And for those that don't realize that, like, this was saying the quiet part out loud this entire episode. Like, it is everything that we've ever discussed has coalesced at this moment, and the whole ratio thing that we always discuss and this and that, in my opinion, and again, it's just an opinion at this point until it's proven otherwise, but these are the keys. This is why it was said in the first place. It's why it's always been, and the relationships that it brings together is the relationship of everything. Because once you bridge the gap between a third and a half, which this does, okay, then you realize that 9 and 10 base can coincide separately and equally. They're sides. And these are the ratios that we've been looking for. Okay. Like, again, just an idea here, but I actually believe in my heart of hearts, these are the key ratios. This is it. You build it like this, build it to these specifications, and this is what you get. And when you don't believe it, you look at the Earth and understand that the Earth and its mass and its energy and its interaction with our own sun and all the energy differentials that we are constantly subject to, okay, are immediately present in what I said. And nobody has explained why that's the resonance ever, as far as I know. That's where the Earth's equilibrium is. Cool. Why? Why? Because of everything that I just said. And why are we in equilibrium? Because of everything I just said. Okay. Is it that big? It's that fucking big. And you know what? If it ever gets proven out legitimately, experimentally, and then you could take the measures and realize that this is the case, don't ever give me anything because I don't want it. I don't care. It's not what it's about. I'm sharing the information. And you got it here first because I've watched every Tesla video 369. I've watched every non-Tesla 369 video. I've read articles on the ratios. All of them have failed where I've proven to today. All of them have failed where I've stated. And I have not displayed, in my opinion at least, I have not displayed one example, okay, that has been out of consistency that does not fall directly in line with this. The 3 vectors, the pulsating third, the whole 9. It's all the proportions, the offset differential. The offset differential is Schumann's resonance on planet Earth, the only planet that we know of that actually has animated fucking matter. Okay? That's the key. Animated matter. It's not about matter and it's not about energy. It's about animated matter. Okay? There's nowhere else that they've ever disclosed to us in which a rock goes like this. Okay? This is where it happens. This is where we vibrate. That's how you create it. So you're welcome. Tesla 369 broken wide open for you. And you know what book I opened? My fucking brain. That was it. Everybody. Like, that's what it's all about. I know it sounds frustrating. This has been a long time coming to this exact moment. A very long time coming.
So funny, man.
And if I'm wrong, hat tip to you, it's right on Earth. Maybe it's not right everywhere, but it's right here.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, I've been writing it down, Joe, all the stuff we talk about, and I call it resonance theory because that's where it begins and that's where it dies, man. You know, God spoke the word into something and it resonated back. And there you go. We have it all.
That we do. Time energy, but animated by what? Itself? Actually, yes. But no, at the same time. Everything that I've said previously. The bifurcation of, you know, God, the reflection onto itself and the fractal deconstruction and then reconstruction of coalescence in the center, the energy flow through the middle into a state of asymmetric equilibrium. And then, at the end of the day, once you have the two in line, the third falls in, but it doesn't fall in, right? It falls in that beat frequency, which is time, energy, is that third vector beat frequency. And that's it, that's the universe. Like, we don't even have to have a show anymore. No, we have to have a show because if we don't show it, then it doesn't matter. But
That's right.
that team woke up today. I was fired up for this. This was a big deal.
Yeah. So the one we're talking about was, oh man, I don't even know how to say that. I don't think there's a difference. I think somebody split them. I don't think there's a difference between mechanical and electrical resonance. And
Nope.
it's all vibrating the atom. That's all we're doing.
Well, there is a difference, though. It's waste, inefficiency, and waste.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Anytime you're moving matter to do something that's not matter, which is everything that this is, you're subject to resistance. And eliminating that resistance out of a mechanical process is fucking near impossible. It's damn near impossible. Not impossible, but at room temperature it is. But why? Why is there no resistance when the temperature's so low? Oh, differential offset. Oh, forgot. Yeah. Because guess what? If it was all that cold, well, yeah, you wouldn't have resistance, but that just simply is what it is. But to maintain it at room temperature, you need that differential offset.
Yeah. But by the way, I think mechanical resonance and resonance we're talking about has to do with speed. It's just how fast it is. You're going to see it as vibration in one instance and then no vibration at all, but it's resonating. It looks like it's doing nothing, but it's doing all the work. That's the state that everybody gets confused by. So when we can see it mechanically, you can see it vibrate things, you see it shake things all day long. And all based on the speed of how fast it's resonating. That's where I see the difference in it, and that's it. But that's in everything. You know what I mean?
No, it is.
So that's why I say I don't really see a difference. It's just
hold on. This is super important. This really just occurred to me to say, even though it's like inherently true to me.
go ahead.
Like, there's a difference between attraction and coalescence. Okay. The nature of something to accumulate, a weak force, an accumulation force, where it's the same, so it's just kind of falling in the same direction to come together. Okay. Whereas an attraction and repulsion, because we know that opposites attract, right? But at the same time, we know that like things accumulate. Oh, there's a difference between attraction and accumulation. What the fuck? Well, yeah, it has to do with the natural processes that we were discussing before about, they're becoming coherence through different other forces, which we're all subject to, right? So yeah, when you spin something around, yeah, it falls into its parts. When you really spin something around like this, you know what I mean? Like, then it really falls into its parts. But they're not being attracted together at that point. You must understand, right? They're actually falling into place through their self-organizing, processes through these other forces, secondary reactions, right? Whereas the opposites will actually actively be like, ooh, that, and Well, that's where the chase comes in. The chase and the lock in equilibrium. Strong force, weak force. All right, like secondary, primary force opposites attract, so to speak, at the more fundamental level than polarization. I'm not talking about polarization, opposites attract. I'm talking about actual differential attraction, which is why entropy happens, because the hot and cold need to exchange, right? The hot and cold need to exchange. They need to exchange into a state of diffusion. Okay. Well, when you start working that around, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's very, very cold here, very, very hot there. Eat its fucking tail, or a Boris style, and then you're okay. Now all of a sudden, how did you do that through a vortex? You understand? Did it through a vortex. Why a vortex? Torsion.
Yeah.
You get your head around it. This is it. Like, I mean, because no matter what you apply, charge, polarization, hot and cold, pressure differentials, this is exactly how you do it every single time.
Yeah.
That's it. It's about linking entropy.
Everything wants to get back to a state of equal, right? Well, that's why when you play with heat and cold in your system, in entropy, that's why it's doing what it's doing. It'll create the vortex just to bring in the other energies, just to bring the other temperature, just to fix itself. That's what it's doing. It always tries to correct itself back to an equal level. Every time.
Every time. And it will. And the separation matters too, and the opposites attracting matters too. Because once you get things separate, but they're chasing each other, but you maintain that separation, well, asymmetric equilibrium. There you go. And differential offsets. Like, it's just like in the Bible, it's like, you open up the page and it's like, there was heaven and earth, and then God said, let there be light. He said, spoke light into existence through sound. What is sound? Vibration. What is vibration? Oscillation. And then you just break it down from there. That in the Bible, but the Bible could really, like, if everybody was in the know, everybody was initiated, everybody was woke, everybody believed. Really, the Bible could be like several words. It could literally be like, first God said, "Let there be light," and then and say something to the effect of like, differential offsets and asymmetric equilibrium, and then that'll be it. That would be the entire Bible.
Yeah.
It'd be like all that, and all that became therefore of.
Well, hold on. There's more in that Bible than people think, and it's not just the words written down there. It's actually how they build out the pages. They could have numbered it 1 to 1,000 or whatever pages there are in this thing, right? But they didn't. John 3:16. Okay. Did you get what I'm trying to say there?
I don't know. I only know Austin 3:16.
Yeah, well, so do I.
That was a bad joke.
It's a ratio. What does the ratio match to what they're describing on the page? Every time, what does the ratio match to what they're describing on the page? You have to start seeing things a little differently than what you normally do. That's how the coding works. They're coding things inside of something you're not realizing they're doing. But once you understand how these things start to build out, you start to wonder, what the hell were they trying to tell me really there? Hold on, let me go back. Okay. Because when they're telling you, okay, let me make this correlation for people. John Hutchinson was tearing apart metal by creating a null zone in the middle of it by using resonance. He created resonance. It went into the metal itself because it resonated at the same frequency. It created the null zone. It then was compressed inside the metal itself. It had nowhere it could go. The only thing it could do is tear the metal apart. Okay, that's it. Because the actual energy state in there went like how do I say it, like a demon core. It just was compressed to the point where it couldn't do anything more, so it had to break out. Okay? But then we go to the Bible and we look at the Ark of the Covenant. What happens? You create a resonant state. What happens in the crystal itself? It created resonance inside the crystal. It had nowhere to go, went out, and then the thing lit up. Okay? It is the same process they're telling you over and over. It's in a different story that they're telling it to you. We're not doing anything different here. Resonance was the key to it all. You just had to see how it built out in the state that it built in.
All right, I'm gonna go one step further with this because I just want to break the internet tonight. You know what? I already exposed Tesla 369, Fibonacci, Schumann's resonance, cavitation, and low energy nuclear reactions in all theory. And now I will give you the mother of them all. All right. Remember how I said, right? We're in the middle of a coalescence. The middle, we're in the center, right, of the torus, okay, so to speak. And that's where the coalescence is because that's where the fractal division recoalesced into its densest form is in the center. And what do we know? Well, we know that light, okay, mind you, the bifurcation of the all into one, not two, okay? One that's fractal in its nature and one that's radiant in its nature. And that radiant is the light, okay? And that light, it shines right through all of that low density bullshit. And it does not reflect, absorb, or retract in any way until it reaches the densest forms in the center, which is the animating force. It is the energy, it is the light that shines upon us. That is God. Okay? It is all God, actually, but that's not the point. The point is that Jesus Christ himself is actually the mirrored reflection of the light, and through the matter that it generally doesn't touch. Okay, that is the key. All right. When it was sent down, there was a second process that occurred one time and one time only, in one circumstance, a hypercoherent form that reflected God's own light through the matter, which doesn't happen, okay, into a specific point. And that was Christ. That's it. Why? Because everything else was a diffused version of God's energy that bypassed all of the fractal chaos, all of the recoalescence until it hit the center form. But by reflecting the light through the light, it was able to actually shine on everything in between and give literally a projection of God into human form on this earth. So what you got was a human being who was also God. He was the Son of God in the sense that he is not the mass of all, but he is the sum of all. He is the zero. See? Because that's what the recoalescence in his case was. And that's very esoteric. Nobody else has ever said that, as far as I know. You know, I'm sure somebody else has said it at some point. Okay, but like here I am telling you from my own book of my mind, that is my theory on Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior, you know, and then what it means in this universe and for you is exactly what the teachings are, which is there is only love, and to be able to be pure is forgiveness. Okay, forgiveness meaning no attachments. No attachments meaning that everything that bad that's ever happened to you, you actually have to have a certain degree of appreciation for. You know, and those are the strings that are cut that set you free. Those are the things that let your light go back. And, you know, like it took another turn in a direction that maybe we didn't anticipate today. But guess what? That's the deal. Like that's how that light shined through in order to give that salvation is that presence. You know, and your ability to actually absorb that presence within yourself. You know,
So if the Shroud of Turin was actually draped over Jesus, then it means he was just in an energy state going back to where he was. He was created from an energy state. He went right back to it.
It was a full-blown feedback. A full-blown feedback. Something that did not happen in a diffuse state. It happened in a laser state, in a coherent state.
So when they say he rose, I think people misunderstand that. And the way I see it is his light body rose, his physical body stayed. His light body came out and was projected where people could see it, and he walked off.
Well,
You know what I mean?
so that happened. Okay, so that's the unique part of it, is that because, in my opinion, again, very, 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 this is, you want to talk about like occulted and esoteric and like deep woo woo, like this is the line. Like everything I just said today, mainstream. Okay, but if you think about it, if the projection of the light, the reflection of the light in a coherent form is allowed to actually interact with all of the fractal breakdown in between there and here, so to speak, if you want to think about it that way, even though it's not that way. Okay. So between point A and point B, okay, he was the sum of all. Now, when it goes away, he's still a hologram. See, there's no death in that case at all.
Mhm.
In that case, there's no death. Right? There's a resurrection in the sense of there you could actually, in that particular case, despite, even though it might happen to each and every one of us, provided that certain conditions are met, whatever, where the light goes back. Okay. In his case, that light is able to remain. It's able to remain because he's actually projected through everything before it actually coalesces into matter. So he's omnipresent, in the circumstance because of that projected quality. And as long as that projection sustains, he does not have to be matter in order to be manifest.
That's interesting. It gives you a whole different way to look at it, doesn't it?
Whole different way to look at it, because it's a literal omnipresent hologram, regardless of physical body or not.
Well, it explained why the healing factor was there, because all the energy, you know what I mean, from everything to do anything that you want to do in the entire, cosmos is in him. So he can do anything he wanted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it.
What church would Jesus choose? Well,
He wouldn't.
Yeah, he would. He absolutely would. And the funny thing about it is, like, talked about this with my girlfriend recently. Like, parents are very Catholic, or family's very Catholic. Catholicism is just paganism plus Jesus. and that everything that broke off of that was just like, because we don't like it plus Jesus. It's actually funny to think that Christianity in any way, shape, or form is an offshoot of Judaism, even though it's presented that way, because almost all Christianity rejects all of the pre-Jesus connotations due to the fact that he was the savior. The fact is that there's a lot of validity in all faiths, depending on your perspective, I suppose. But the fact is that as practiced today, Christianity is offshoot of pagan beliefs and not Jewish beliefs in any way, shape, or form. And he would not have chosen any of those churches. But what's insane to think is that modern actual like mystic Judaism, like when you're talking about like Hasidism, high Hasidism or high Orthodoxy, not just general practice. It tends to actually bury itself more in line with Wiccan and witchcraft beliefs and such than it does with anything that you'd be familiar with today. That's what all the highest Jews practice. So it's not surprising that the orthodoxy of Catholicism is an offshoot of that in any regard, because that's what Jews actually believed all along, except they didn't say the quiet part out loud because they were like that. So Yeah, Jewish mysticism is like it's exactly in line and in tune with like you know the high degrees of paganism, like Druidism, for instance.
Mm. You know, as far as the church thing goes, I think there's no chance he would go to any church. There's just not. It would be an insult to him to be there. And I don't think people see that because they go to church and they're not seeing behind the scenes what's going on. I mean, you got churches protecting pedophiles for God's sake. You don't have that. Okay, they're very clear rules, and there weren't many of them. You wouldn't stand for any of that garbage.
Yeah, no, the biggest problem is that like there's like very fine lines here about paths, and that's what like high Jews believe is in Kabbalah. Kabbalah is the tree of life. More like that's one aspect of it, major aspect. Tree of life is three paths. Get it? Three thirds, right? The left, the left, the right, the middle, right? And the thing is, like the left path is, materialism, and the right path is spirituality, and the middle path kind of weaves in between, connecting the two. And their belief is that, in order to, achieve higher consciousness and actually escape the hellhole, you kind of got to like complete your chart. You got to be able to make the connections. And I think that the case in point tends to be that, you know, there's definitely right and wrong ways to live, but at the end of the day, there's a certain level of Christ consciousness that has to exist in order for um, that transcendence to be made, or else you just get stuck in your own belief. So there's like a aspect of gnosis, like with a G, that has to occur in order for that transmutation of yourself to actually happen. And then that's how that ties into like Buddhism and such, because if not, whether they say it or not, high levels of Christianity, Catholicism, and Judaism don't believe in reincarnation because of the fact that you're incoherent with the rest of the system. So because you're incoherent, you just kind of get cycled back, right? Isn't that what happens? Like, it's cycled back. If you're coherent, then you just go into a diffuse state.
Yeah, okay. I get all that. I don't even care what the religion is.
No, it's not about religion, by the way.
No,
It's
I
not.
understand that.
This is about energy.
I don't think he cared. Here's the thing that the church always wants to say, oh, you got to worship, you got to worship, you got to worship. I think that's the wrong word.
Yep, no, that's bad.
You have to believe in God, and you have to want to join his energy at some
All right,
point.
I'm shaking my head. You
I
have to
know.
know. No, you have to know God, and that's the thing.
Okay, well, I can
Yeah,
go
you
with
have to
that.
know God. The whole
But it's not.
thing with what you're saying, the dogmatic practices, it's an energy leak for those in the know and those not. That's why cathedrals are set up that way in resonant, harmonics, right, where it all seems amplified. But if you've ever sat in the pews and you've ever stood up at the altar, you understand the difference. Okay, there's a difference as to what energy is given out and what energy is received, what is being opened up and what is being received. The person that's giving the sermon is always in, they may be giving the sermon, but they're receiving the reciprocation of all the energy of every single other person in that room, which is why when you're up at the altar, you can hear a whisper in the pews. But if you're out at the altar and you're like me, you're just like, what did he say? Huh? Like that's how it's set up for those reasons. And I hate to say that it's nefarious, but not nefarious. It's either not everybody was meant to be in the position of receiving these high degrees of energetic or spiritual awareness. That's it. Like the most are not, and some are. And that's it.
All I'm trying to say is I don't think that he would be very happy with the worship. Okay, that's what I'm saying. I don't agree with that.
Oh no, I
And
mean I agree with the idea. You wouldn't be happy with the worship because it just goes right into coinciding with what I'm saying. But at the same exact time, the idea here is that everybody can be saved, not that everybody will.
no, not disagreeing with that. I agree with all of it. I'm just trying to make a point. People look at it the wrong way. They think they could do anything and go into a little box and be forgiven, and it didn't matter what they did, and that's wrong.
Not as well.
And that's a worship concept. That, you know what I mean? It's not knowing God. It's being able to be forgiven for everything bad you've done, and you ruin people. Yeah,
Once you understand that
you
forgiveness is
shouldn't
not
be
given.
forgiven.
Yeah,
You
no. The
should
thing is,
not.
forgiveness is not given. Forgiveness is something that you do for yourself. So you cannot give somebody your forgiveness. You must forgive somebody for yourself. So whether you've been on the receiving or giving end, it's the strings that attach you to the action. Okay, that is the problem. That is the problem. That is the incoherence. And that's it. Like it really is that. Like I know it sounds very bland, but I mean that really is that simple. That's what throws you out of harmony and doesn't allow you to dip out from the sim. You know,
Anyway, no, I get it.
light as a feather. Say it in any spiritual terms you want, because they all said the same exact thing. They did, but like Gerald, we don't agree, except we do.
No, I look. I'm not disagreeing with you at all, Joe. It's not that. It's just that some people have this thing that they think anything can be forgiven. So what's the point of doing anything here today? Well, because your actions have consequences, and you should pay for those for an eternity. If you do
Good,
certain
but
things,
that's
just certain things. You know what? You should be made to repeat this life over and over and over again. You know what I mean? And make it hell for you.
so.
That's
Here's
what they
the
should
deal,
do.
man, and this is where it gets interesting. Even the most like narcissistic person who thinks they've done no wrong, okay, um, their subconscious knows better. Okay, and the only way to truly forgive those types of sins is within yourself. Okay, full acceptance of your role without any sort of excuse. You know, no matter how unfortunate. Sometimes, and guess what? It doesn't only work with the things you've done; it also works with things that have been done against you. Right? How does the Lord Prayer go? We forgive those, like who have sinned against us. Right? You know, please forgive us for our sins as we forgive those who have sinned against us. You see that reciprocal situation, right? The idea is
Well,
that things that you've done have to be self-forgiven, the same as things that you've done to others, and
okay,
that means
you
awareness.
gotta stop. You gotta stop. Okay, there's a clear line between everybody's forgiven and someone who go out and commits murder. Okay, I'm sorry. There's a clear line. It's clear as day. They are not forgiven. They'll never be forgiven. They belong in eternal hell. Okay,
Well,
and I don't care how they see that hell. They belong there.
so now you're getting
There's
now
no
you're getting
forgiveness for
confused.
me.
Now you're getting confused, and this is an
I'm not
easy
getting
confusion to
confused.
make. Okay, listen, I'm being real. You're getting confused here. All right, you're bringing something into the equation that's not part of the equation, which is a moral dilemma. Okay, because there's certain things, okay, that are moral dilemma, okay, that are appalling to you and I, okay, and appalling to most people that, frankly, in other places are just simply regular. All right, and it crosses the board. It doesn't have to be that outrageous. Like, I mean, there's simple examples, but there are also very strong examples. And it all just boils down to effect on others, right? So when you have a negative effect on others, okay, there's certain actions that we could think of that would fit that bill. But the idea here is if somebody breaks into your house and holds your daughter at gunpoint, you shoot them in the fucking head, you're a hero, right? But at the end of the day, you ended somebody's life. And is that eye for an eye in Hammurabi's code? It's a very human way of looking at things. The fact is that are we human? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, like an action is also an action and a fact is a fact. So there's no differentiation if you're looking at simply fact as
You're
to what.
humanizing it. You're humanizing it. I
Well,
want nothing to do with that. You're
well,
humanizing it.
well. I mean, there's other extreme examples that I simply won't go into. That, and it's no. This is a YouTube thing. This has nothing to do with my unwillingness to say it. But like, you know, there's certain cultures, for instance, right, where you're basically married off at 9. Okay. Yeah, that's wildly unacceptable. I believe personally, people like that should get tossed into a wood chipper. That's what I believe. Okay. But here's the thing. And this is where you got to get your head around morals and why it's irrelevant. Okay. Because in the society where that's normal, okay, when they turn 10, if they have no acceptor, is that detrimental to them?
Okay, again, you're normalizing it.
It's
You're
not
changing the
normalizing.
no,
It's
you're
not
trying to draw.
normalizing. It's societal.
You're drawing parallels that are not the same, and you're trying to get it to normalize in my brain. It's not going to work.
It's not about normalizing anything.
There's a very clear
It's just
line here.
simply about no. It's just about shifting perspective to understand that it
Oh,
has nothing to do with action. It has everything to do with the effect on others. That's
I'm just gonna stop right here and say I agree with some portions, disagree with others in the subject because we're not going to get anywhere with this.
Yep. But listen, I don't get anywhere with myself on it. I say wood chipper all day. But the fact is that whether I like it or not, that's a dynamic that exists.
No. Okay.
So yeah, I don't like it. I don't agree with it. But yep, that's where it's at.
Mm. Oh man, somebody says looping. I'll just change the subject. That movie Looper was wild. That dude got chopped up and like he was his older self, and so parts just start like coming off of him. That was truly a wild movie right there. That was like total time thing, like because it was like you're healed from the injury, but you're still alive, and the guy's still chopping you apart, and it's like no matter what you did in that state, you knew it was over as soon as the first limb came off.
I didn't see it, but
Oh, you didn't see it?
I got the imagination of it.
Oh, dude, it was wild. Yeah, it was like climbing a fence, and his finger was gone. Then he looked over again, and 2 fingers were gone. And then there was a line on his arm that wrote a note on his arm, come to this address, right? And he realized in his brain at that particular time that his body was being chopped apart by people. And then he had to get to the address on that time to stop it. So as he's going, man, parts of his body are coming off. He loses a hand, he loses a leg. You know what I mean? He can't push the brake because his foot's gone. It was like the guy was literally amputating him, and then in time, the first future part of himself was being amputated. He was wild.
Yeah, well, it sounds like being dematerialized into another place, like kind of like your teleporter, free hole. Remember that? If Mike ever got that thing working, that's basically what it's doing. It's basically chopping you up and healing you at the same time.
Look, I don't mean this in a negative way, but I would love to overlay Mike's 3-hole conversation with the orbs. Like, it would be hilarious because you'd have Mike describing there's always 3 holes. There's
Yo, why isn't it done?
It's just hilarious, bro.
Yo, you haven't done that in a minute, man. We used to be funny over here. We're not funny anymore. Now you just gotta hear about this serious shit about Tesla and Jesus Christ and
Oh my god, dude!
throwing pedophiles into wood chippers and
I was working on one and I couldn't get it together because I didn't know if I wanted the phrase like a captain or like a boss, right? Because
that's all it took, huh?
Well, no, because it was like that. I was watching a music video thing, and the guy was saying like a boss, right? And he said all this stupid crap, okay, that he did, and I was thinking, man, I could do that. You know what I mean? It'd be like the captain falls asleep in his chair, thinking he's the boss, and he's going around, you know what I mean, sleeping with alien women and everything else. It'd make a funny Star Trek episode, right? Anyway. Just a
I'm
thought.
sorry. I'm sorry that was a deterrent for you because I'd have liked to have seen it, but whatever.
Oh man, I was gonna make a whole music thing. You know what I mean? I wanted to make that song I sent you.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. My bad. That they went long on me.
Dude, it's all right. It was just funny because I guess it's bad, man. Dude, I'm getting tired. And when I get tired, I get frustrated, and I'm just like, I mean, the whole bad side of me comes out. You know what I mean? So
I've been there.
it does that in the morning, like a lot. I don't even notice that negative connotation I sometimes have in the
Bro, you
morning.
go on the rant in the morning is what you do, yo. You just be like, world, world. You'd be like fighting Irish style, like. But
Oh,
I'm just sitting there like, and then a couple times I egged you on a little bit. I'm like, bro, you're like tirade right now, And I was like naysaying it a little bit. And you're like, fucking naysaying the ass motherfucker. Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay, all right, Brenda.
oh, Brenda. Dude, that was like unfair the whole way it went down. That was
So
like
listen,
so
you didn't even have the time or capacity. For whatever reason, I just tore them a new one. I was like, potential of what? Potential of what? Potential of what? Fluctuation of what? Potential of what? And they were like, yeah, I'm not going to deal with this. This is stupid. No, they left. Eventually.
it's so funny, dude, because I get the weirdest stuff in the morning. A guy named Chicken Nugget comes on,
Yo, chicken nugget.
and I immediately want to break what I'm saying just to talk about chicken nuggets. Like literally. And he got me one time, man. I'm just sitting there laughing at it. You know what I mean? I can't help myself. Or some guy comes on and the first thing he says, because normally people scroll when they go live and it's right on their screen. He just comes on the first thing hot out of the gate, man. He goes, I like woman farts. And I'm like, what the fuck was that all about? You know what I mean? And then just some weird people like first thing in the morning.
Listen, I really hope that this episode today, though, for what it's worth, like we might have to break it up into like a nice small piece and just like give the meat because like this needs to get out there. This was, in my opinion, the this is it. This is the pinnacle. Like we might not be there exactly yet, but you've seen the stuff we're talking about and it's explained. So the key point here is like this is big. Roll with it. Prove those proportions right. Like I really hate to say it, like prove those proportions right because there's certain things that don't lie, and then when all the numbers start popping out of the one proportion, it makes sense. So, you know, maybe it doesn't make sense on Mars, but it makes sense on Earth, and that's where we're at. And just remember airplanes that are anti-gravity, and we're talking about energy and gravity in context of Earth. So, as far as earthly realm is concerned, this seems like good information.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping everybody enjoyed it. There's a lot more to it that I honestly have on my phone that I cannot, can't recall at all. But the correlations are wild. That's all I'm saying. And awesome.
So I gotta say this one last thing, man. The guy, Professor whatever, Dave, I think it was, he's debunking electrical theory, and I'm laughing the whole time he's doing it. It's like, well, what's mass? It's energy. But what's energy? It's mass. So you're debunking what theory again? Electrical theory. What's electrical? It's energy. What's energy? It's mass. I'm just going back and forth with myself, going, this is the most ignorant person I've ever heard in my life. Like,
Okay, so
literally,
all right. You opened a can of worms, but we're not going to go too deep in it. You've been talking about string theory lately. Okay, now when they show string theory, all right, they're like, look at the vibrating stringy chord. Okay, that's not what it is. You're not wrong. Not what it is though. Imagine those vibrating stringy things just being standing waves inside of everything that I just said. That's what it is. like all that vibrating stringy bullshit it's inside of something, which is the containment. The vibration, why is it vibrating and not moving? Well, because it's a standing wave, it is moving. So what is that? Well, that's not. It's just perturbations of the ether. That's all it is. Everything is just perturbations of the ether.
Well,
Everything. Well, what's perturbation in the ether? Well, I mean, it's a waveform that's broken out and then isolated, and then other shit happens to it, like what I just said, and then that shit that happens to it, like, well, that creates a coherent mass of jiggly shit that's not really jiggly. It's just, it's like if you take a string, a literal
jiggly shit.
string. What is the string, though? Well, it's an isolated form of a wave form, which is the perturbation in the ether that's compressed, and then it's shaking around in like that form, and that's what we can see. But like at the end of the day, it's just like a disturbance of the still that has reached a form of stability through everything that I just said. So there you go. Did just break it wide open.
Oh well, string theory doesn't work without resonance. Here's the stupidest part. They talk about the strings, right? I remember an old physics professor back in the '60s was had a TV show, right? And he would go out there and tell you about resonance. What did he tell you about how to turn on the tuning forks? That you have to whack them and then get the two in resonance with each other, and you see them in slow motion, opening and closing, right? And we're sitting there going, okay, that's how it started. And then he would tell you, oh, it turns on the guitar because you never strum the guitar. It turns on by itself. And he explained this in the 60s. Okay. And I'm watching this thing going, okay. And then when they come out with their theory, it's like, we don't remember the 60s. We did too much stuff back in the day. We don't remember the 60s. It's
You
like,
don't remember the '60s because you weren't alive, nor was I.
well, not old people like Michio Kaku. He was probably around back then.
Yeah, he's probably around.
And he's Mr. String Theory, or the face of it, I should say. It's like you didn't learn your lesson back then, like when physics told you when physics was real, following experiments still. You didn't learn it?
Well, what's a string? A waveform. Well, why is it bundled up in that? Well, because it's compressed. Well, why is it compressed? Well, because like it has isolation and stability. And why is it isolated and stable? Well, because it's bifurcated. Well, why is it bifurcated? Well, because it went through this sort of process of sorting. Why did it go through these processes of sorting? Because of electromagnetism. Well, why that? Well, because of the perturbation of the ether, that's what it conducts. And then you can just go on and on and on, and then it's like, well, you reach these states of density, and then you realize that it's all plasmatic form. Basically went through this process more than one time. It just keeps on going through the process until it reaches denser waveforms, because these plasmatic processes, they exist way beyond here. They don't take very high. The density, because of the ambient differentials at different dimensions, if you want to call it that, higher up that you can't really sense. Okay. Lower densities that make the differential is much easier to achieve at those levels. So as it falls, it precipitates things, a cloud, right? It's why clouds are in the fucking sky but fall rain. As above, so below, it's all the same, et cetera, et cetera. You're welcome. Thank you. You people are my pleasure.
I kind of love the chat, man. So remember, 70s are close enough to the 60s. You remember some of the 70s?
Bro, I was born in 86. I don't know.
Back when you
It's
see
a
the
good
pictures
number,
of
by
your
the way.
parents with their bell bottoms. Back when they had fish in their shoes. Oh man.
Well, if you want to talk about like fractal numbers, my birthday is January 6th, 86. And because of those particular numbers, they end up falling in like all this math all the time, and I'm just like, oh, look, my birthday. Oh, look, my birthday. Oh, look, my birthday.
Yeah. Oh, the 70s make me feel old. Yeah. 70s when I was born, man. Right in the middle of disco season. Yeah. Somebody was discoing it up. Oh man, Casey and the Sunshine Band was rocking back then. Everybody in tune. Oh, it's great. All right, guys.
About to go live. I
It's
have
almost 4 hours today,
what
man.
you can do. So
Yeah, Mike's gonna be on here pretty soon too, man.
rock
Like,
and roll.
yeah, we were on for a long time today, man.
How could
Right
you
on,
not
guys.
be? How could you not be? Anyway.
I want to thank everybody in the chat. You guys have been totally awesome today, man. Joe, thank you for all the theory in this. And then shout out to Sean, man. Awesome work on that RAV. I keep calling it the wrong name. I think you got it right this time. Yeah.
Got it, bro.
Thanks, everybody, man. Have a great
Peace
night.
and love.
The old man built. The old man built. The old man built. The old man built. The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality been stricken from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds.